It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. So is Richard Campbell. We've got Hello Gate, the Windows Hello controversy of months. No, it's not you. It's them. We'll also talk about some big new games for Xbox. And is Richard going to buy a new laptop? Find out next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 937, recorded Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. Vexed by Perturbations. It's time! Yes, you winners and dozers, you came to the right place at the right time. Probably because you downloaded it and you already knew. It's Windows Weekly time, and here, ladies and gentlemen, the stars of our show, Mr. Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com.
Not frazzled. You're frazzled. What do you mean?
He's frazzled. He keeps changing his settings just to see what happens.
I wish that's why I was doing it, but
he is in beautiful Pennsylvania, lovely Macungie Township. Also with us from beautiful British Columbia, Richard Campbell of Run His Radio. Finally, home at last.
Home at last in 3 weeks.
You poor guy. You have been suffering.
I had so much fun. Are you kidding? Like, it's hard to complain, but home is very good.
You have been having fun.
Easily complain. Yeah. Give me a second.
Paul needs no challenge, no introduction to complain. Anything is a game for Paul. Anyway, we're so pleased to be gathered together on this beautiful Wednesday. Beloved. To talk about the latest news from Microsoft. Can I call it Hello Gate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
I do not mind. I think that's pretty good.
It just quit on my Surface 2 some patch ago.
Well, so every Windows user, or maybe every computer user, can sort of relate to this thought, which is you're doing something on your computer, Windows in my case, yep. And something doesn't work. And you're like, well, Windows, or to me, it's something, I don't know, some combination
it's just, normal, right?
So it's not like in my case, So I have a lot. In fact, I'm charging 2 computers over there. One of those is a laptop, review laptop, like Windows Hello, facial recognition doesn't work a lot of the time. It's just kind of the way it is. So you get used to it and you're like, okay, fine, whatever. I guess.
But don't we rely on it for things like recall?
You rely on it for all kinds of things, which is kind of why this is a problem. So the past, I don't know, week or 2, 10 days, something like that, I've noticed, I'll be sitting in the dark like I do, watching TV.
As one does, yeah.
Open a little laptop and the little eye thing is like, boop, 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 and it's like, can't find you. And then it has the audacity to give you like tips about how you might fix this problem. Like maybe you should have more light.
Clearly your fault.
Yeah, maybe you should try another face. Do you have another face? One time it told me, it didn't see a face. Like I'm just right in front of the screen, dude. Come on, man. So anyway, I chalk this up to me, right? Or Windows or some combination.
Or the weekend. You can't feel your face.
Yeah. So it turns out, no. They, in the latest Patch Tuesday, so this would have been, 8 days ago, I guess. One of the items that was in the list for Windows 10 and 11, I believe, is a fix for a Windows Hello spoofing vulnerability that allowed attackers to perform spoofing locally due to, this is in quotes, inadequate detection or handling of adversarial input perturbations.
There you go.
In Windows Hello.
It's perturbations. That's what's happening.
Perturbations. I am perturbed. I am vexed by the perturbations.
Yes. You ought to be.
It's a lawyer worked on that.
It's a tough one.
It's a perturbation issue.
Yeah.
So the way this worked in the past, and by in the past, I mean literally dating back to the beginning of Windows 10 or something. No, I mean the way it's always worked is if you're in the dark, it has an IR camera. Right. It's similar to the technology Apple uses for Face ID that can help recognize you in the dark. But now they're just using the camera, and the camera can't see in the dark. Even if you have, light mode on, and if it's dark enough in the room, it's not going to see you. So hilarious.
So when it doesn't work, it just doesn't recognize you. It's not that it has a big pop-up that says, I'm not working now.
So I think what Microsoft has done has given me, as a Windows on ARM user, the ability to experience the Intel world, where the
Congratulations.
the camera
We know
comes
you
up
missed us.
and it's like,
Aren't you fortunate?
where are you? Where are you, buddy? And you're like,
go?
you're holding the thing. You're like, I'm right here. I'm right here. Hello, I'm right here.
Hello.
And it's like, nope, can't see you. And I'm like, I am 2 feet away from the screen. Come on. So, so it's not really clear right now how serious this is. It's not, Microsoft doesn't know if it's been exploited by attackers.
Right.
We're going to learn more, I think. So,
and this might be an interim fix. It's like, first let's lock it down. Now let's develop some better software to deal with these. What was the phrase you used?
Perturbations.
Yes.
Adversarial input perturbations.
Adversarial input.
So it's a security issue.
Yes.
100%.
Now, yeah. No, there's a security vulnerability update, or whatever they call it, security vulnerability post or whatever about this. So but like Richard said, correct. You fix the problem first, or you eliminate the problem.
Yeah, you eliminate the breach risk first, then you restore functionality.
And maybe we're lucky, right? So this is one of those things. This is coming up a little bit later, but today is the 1-year anniversary of the day that Surface Laptop 7 and Surface Pro 11 were released, right? The Snapdragon computers, and I have a nearly flawless experience with this laptop that I bought a year ago. If anything, actually, the battery life is actually better now than it was a year ago. That's amazing. But one of the things that I didn't like about it and don't think is acceptable in a computer that's this expensive is it only has the facial recognition. It doesn't have a fingerprint reader as well. I feel like spent over $2,000 on a laptop, but maybe it should have both, just picky like that. So I've gotten used to using Windows Hello facial recognition. I actually prefer fingerprint. Frankly, I like to explicitly, signal that I want to log in. But yeah, I've been using it for quite a while now, and now it doesn't work. So yeah, that's fine.
Well, I mean, so they could add to the front of that screen a nice bright light they could flick on just to get your facial recognition. Then they get all these pictures of you going, ah.
Yeah, and if you're stupid enough to have it in light mode when you turn this thing on, you actually get that automatically. But it still doesn't. I'm trying to think. I don't believe it's ever worked in the dark for me since last week. I'm not going to remember every instance, but I certainly remember this happening multiple times where it's dark. Yeah. Open it, and you're like, "What's going on here?" And you're
my Surface Studio 2 longer ago, but it now recognizes my face, not in the darkest recently, but up until recently, and then it would go, there's been an error, enter your PIN. Yeah.
I like when you do the finger one. It says, I can't read the finger. You should try another finger. Like, I've only put one finger in this thing. You should know that, or whatever. It's like, try a different face. I'm like, this is what I got. So yeah. Anyway, we're still not 100% clear on what's going on here. So, I suspect we'll have an update.
Out of sync on the Discord just came up with the perfect answer, which is they'll add a piece of software that flips to an all white screen at maximum brightness.
Turn your screen up. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. That's your flash.
Right. Like when you do like a selfie and you do a fake flash or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Maybe that's the answer. I look forward to that. I don't have like retina problems or anything, so that'll be a fun way to develop those. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess this is the controversy of I call it the week of the week. I guess we usually have something every week. This is this
week's. What's the controversial part on this? That they've not been upfront on what they're really doing here, or?
Yeah, so this is not as dramatic, I hope, as the time that Microsoft got hacked and they didn't say anything for months, and still, by the way, have not really said anything. But it's got little vibes of that.
Listen, I'm going to give Midnight Blizzard a pass because the State Department ended up being involved. Like, it was a nation state actor. And so government puts rules even around a company like Microsoft. Like,
yeah, that's true.
They really weren't allowed to talk about that.
That may be the case. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, the lack of communication on this. Yeah,
all they could say.
Perturbations
that's the clue.
Yeah. There's a pill for that, by the way, and I feel it happens to all computers. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. I have in the past spent time, you can go in and retrain it or do an additional, view of your face, to do one with glasses off, that kind of thing. I've done that. I didn't do it this past week, but I bet a lot of people wasted time on this trying to figure out what the heck was going on. It would have been nice if there was a little note that said, hey, by the way, this used to work. They have no issue prompting me for nothing. I mean, how about prompting me about something that's important? But I don't know. Anyway, that's what's happening.
Well, the fact that we have to sort of deduce what the process here is going to be is, somewhat concerning.
So it's not just insiders. This is
this is in the production product.
This is production. Yeah.
Yikes.
So actually, the other reason this is maybe controversial is that one of the big switches that's been made over the past year has been this move to Windows Hello ESS, which is that more secure form of Windows Hello that has all kinds of crazy requirements. It's part of the Copilot plus PC spec. This is what's protecting recall. You have nothing to worry about. So anyway, we'll see. I don't know.
And yet another reason why there'll never be a Copilot plus PC that's a PC, just a laptop.
Yeah, right.
Because they need to control the input device.
Yeah, maybe they get an all-in-one or something. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, or that spec evolves somehow. That somehow there's some way to, I don't know how you do that. As I was saying that sentence, it's like somehow determine that there's a secure chain of whatever hardware from your camera to your USB port is impossible. It's like a credit card skimmer on a ATM machine or something. But I don't know. Anyway, this is still fog of war stuff right now. So
very much so.
Hello Gate. Can I call it Hello Gate? Is that okay? Why not?
We like a good gate.
I hope you guys have pens you like using instead. I recommend computing in the light. That's just me. But
you could. So it works if you turn on the light.
Yeah, as long as there's light, you're okay.
Okay.
I mean, not for me.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. Right. Sorry. I normally. Crazy.
No, I've gone through the Surface Diagnostics now. No results.
Wow.
I have my own little Surface Diagnostics story, oddly enough. That's interesting.
So, weird. So you just have a completely different problem, Richard.
Yeah, something's
with
the Studio 2. I think it's more than a year old, and it's like, you should replace me.
You didn't get the new thing.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Well, and I'm not going to get one now, right? Like, because it'd be crazy to buy the old chipset. Like, I do want an ARM machine, but
get the ThinkPad, right? Why not get the ThinkPad?
Yeah.
You want to get a Windows device. Is that it?
No, I'm happy to jump off. Now that Panos is gone, I got no loyalty to the Surface machines.
Yeah.
And not that I had loyalty to Panos, but.
You're right.
It's just not as exciting.
I do have a friend at Lenovo. I bet I could get a smoking deal on a Snapdragon.
Oh, there you go. You know what? Almost anybody can. Never pay list price.
Exactly.
For a Lenovo device.
Everything is always on sale.
Yeah.
Always try
a discount.
List price $2,600
or
sale price $799. Like, what's going on? It's incredible.
If we have an agency that's trying to sneak in endorsements into our ads. And the line they always put is, if I had needed this product, it's what I would have bought.
Right.
So if I had needed a Windows machine, a Lenovo is what I would have bought.
That's after a particularly drunk evening, I lost my phone, and then I finally found it. And my wife said, "Where is it?" And I said, "It's right where I would have left it."
If I had left it.
I don't actually remember leaving it there, but...
Nobody will have it as bad as Alex Lindsay, who for some reason drove to the liquor store, picked up some liquor, and then walked home. And the next day said, "Where the hell's my car?"
That's amazing. I love that.
It's brilliant.
He wasn't drunk. There's no excuse.
That's an interesting kind of Uber of shame when you show up at the liquor store and you're like, yeah, they wouldn't let me drive home. I had to walk.
Wow. Anyway, all right. Well, so we're done with the gate. Is that it? Is that all you got?
That's all we know so far. Yeah. It's kind of light on info. Sorry, but that's
well, no, I'm glad you did it. It was the story. What else we have for today? Is that the show?
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming. I'm sorry we started a little late. No, we got
What else you got?
So a couple of insider builds have occurred. Some changes coming to, interestingly, recall. So one of the things that's in recall in the dev, I think this one is dev and beta channels, is the ability to export your recall data so you can access it later. And this, I think, is the first step toward the thing. When I talked to the guys who did recall a year ago and was like, guys, this is cute, but it only makes sense if it works across devices. And they're like, we know. We can't do that yet, baby steps. So this will at least address the situation where maybe you've moved from one computer to another. You want to have that data with you for whatever reason, so you can export it. It's encrypted. They give you a code so you can decrypt it. If you lose the code, you can't decrypt it. That's how encryption works.
It's magic.
Yeah, but it's one, I think, a first step. I would imagine that eventually this will be added to Windows Backup, where you could, as part of your Windows Backup, if you want to, you'll be able to export your recall data and then import it when you bring up the new computer, when you sign in with your Microsoft account, that kind of thing. But right now, we're not doing the cloud. You can export it to your own thing. It's your problem. Good luck with that. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Also, I should also point out, right now, this is only in the EEA, the European Economic Area, and it's probably related to the DMA and whatever requirements that Microsoft has. This is something that's going to come up one or two other times. Last week, Microsoft discussed some of the changes they were making to Windows, mostly around Microsoft Edge and default browsers and default apps, but for the DMA. And they've been pretty upfront about this. So like, look, this is what they're requiring. This is what we're doing. I'm still holding out hope that we'll see at least some of that outside of the European Union or the EEA, but not yet. And there's more. So there is, the AI agent that nobody asked for and nobody will ever use. It will help you find settings in the Settings app. The ability to reset recall, which you could actually do with a couple of additional steps, but now it's like a one-click kind of a thing. They brought back, this is probably the biggest news, depending on who you are. If you're familiar with the calendar flyout in Windows 10, you know that there are a couple things missing from the version that's in Windows 11. The big one being interactivity, where you go in and add and remove events from your calendar if it was synced up with your account. Now it's in Windows 11, ever since it came out, it's just been a static display of a calendar. It has nothing to do, it doesn't show appointments or anything like that. They didn't fix that, but they did add back, or they are adding back, the clock that used to be at the top of the calendar. So it actually looks like the version in Windows 10, but without the actual functionality. Nice. So kind of, yeah. Microsoft, hilarious. And then they're doing some improvements to Windows Share, voice access, etc. So nothing dramatic. But I think the big thing there is to Microsoft, it's probably the settings AI agent. Like I said, I don't think anyone cares, but I think the recall export stuff is kind of a bigger deal, but definitely potentially Europe only. The other thing that happened was that sometime in the past week, Microsoft released 2 new builds to the release preview channel, meaning these are almost certainly what we're going to see on Patch Tuesday next time, or more quickly than that. I got to look at the calendar. Yep, next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, which is the Tuesday of week D, which is when we get preview updates. You may recall that the May and June updates this year for Patch Tuesday were enormous, dozens of features, etc. This one is not, and I have to say, I kind of welcome a little break from that. So the big one is related to that DMA thing, like I said, which is when you set a different browser as a default, it actually does everything, not just the handful of protocols and URL types that it used to do, including, I believe, PDF, which is manual today. And the point behind that is that the other protocols, including some that were hidden, were the things that forced you to use Edge when, say, you clicked something in search highlights in the back of the start menu or in the widget board or whatever, it would load Edge. But now if you say, look, I want to use Chrome, you'll actually use Chrome everywhere, like God intended. That's nice. That change is also coming to Windows 10. So
isn't that why God made Electron?
Well, yeah. I mean, was it the devil? Yeah, I was going to say it was Facebook, so it was the devil. So yeah. Microsoft did a good thing a long time ago that actually came up out of antitrust, by the way, which is that default apps interface. And it was a good interface. It worked. And then over time, they made it harder and harder to use to the point where we got to Windows 11. And aside from the fact that it originally shipped with no way to switch your default browser, by the way, sons of it. But it also, when they added that back, they only did it part way, right? And so it's like, guys, like we get it. You want us to use Edge, which, by the way, I will discuss at the end of the show. So not big updates, but that's good. Like I said. So a couple of other small things. The visual preview on Windows Share, I mentioned the ability to edit an image that you're sharing from the share sheet and how that's actually really cool. Now you can preview an image from the share sheet because, dear God, the share sheet is becoming an operating system unto itself for some reason, but that's whatever. That's what they're doing. So that's actually, I believe, let me just make sure.
All the Windows news.
Yeah, there's really, it's
long and the short of it.
If it wasn't for them screwing up Windows Hello, this would have been the quietest week in the history of Windows.
No kidding. It would have been just
Windows
updates coming that made sense. That's just strange.
I know. But then we got that. And that's nice return to form. I mean, they were like, we're kind of doing the non-chaotic thing. Should we screw it up? They're like, yeah, let's screw it up.
That means we could talk more about Macintosh, which, I'm always
which I got a lot of good feedback on last week. So
got to tell you, I did ping my Lenovo friend, and
Yes.
he sent me to the ThinkPad T14 Gen 6.
yeah. Now, is this the Snapdragon or the whatever
This is
the other one
Snapdragon.
is?
Snapdragon with a 14
So it's like
inch.
a Carbon, but with Snapdragon.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a
and
T series. So the
It's a T series, so it's a little tankier than that. It's not.
Yeah,
not
but
as
T,
small.
it's
Not
S, so it's
full
like
tank.
14S, right? That's the
Yeah.
slimmer.
But you know what else it comes with, my friend? Fingerprint reader.
Yes.
So if Hello doesn't work, you don't care.
Yeah,
That was one of the really good
type
ones.
Type in your PIN like a peasant. You can just stick your finger on the thingamabob, but you
I
can't
actually
find in the
wish
dark.
everything had a fingerprint reader. I'm really sad that, for instance, my iPhone doesn't, because Face ID is not that great.
Yeah.
Well,
Pixel 9 has a
I
fingerprint
like
reader.
Face ID, but I wish my Mac had Face ID.
Wait,
It's
they
got a
won't sell me one.
It has a
this is the
gigantic
new one, probably.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
you need
Intel
the
one
new
for
one.
one thing. You got
You want a
to.
Gen? You want a Gen 6?
let's go to the sixth generation.
T14 Gen 6 Snapdragon.
Ooh,
This
it's
is
lightweight, heavyweight performance that won't weigh you down.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get you a free one. So
a good one.
let's go to the T series, but let's look at the snappy one.
extra snappy dragons.
Snappy T series.
Bum, bum, bum.
Copilot plus PC. That must be
That's
it.
the one.
Well-
Yeah, there's their baby.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Richard.
Now all you got to
it's-
do is load it up with the maximum
'cause
memory
it's-
and the maximum storage and the maximum screen.
I'm not. Given what I'm about to talk about, I can't believe I'm saying this, but you might want to look. I believe there's an AMD version of
It's
this
on
as well.
clearance. Look at that.
And the AMD version has
it's a Gen
that
5.
incredible built-in GPU stuff.
I don't see where I can customize it.
It's only a Gen 5. You sure? I thought that.
no.
Sworn. I think this one they did all three.
Gen
Yeah, no,
6.
you're right. Yeah, it's a Gen 6 Snapdragon.
I would
Coming
just look at
soon.
it.
There's an AMD one. You might maybe want to hold
I
out
want
for
to hold
that.
out for the AMD.
I believe they announced this as long ago as IFA last year. I mean, it's been a while, but anyway, that's a terrific laptop.
You would prefer the AMD, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't, but I could see where people might. And
Richard,
I know
which do you want?
Now that he's literally giving me employee pricing for this thing, which is
Oh my
fully
god! Oh my god!
30% off. I'm kind of like, oh boy, I think I might just have to pull the trigger on this. But
These look like carbons. These don't look that.
they really do,
thick.
don't they?
Yeah.
They don't look that well. Nothing.
No, they're nice. It's nice.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
The new carbons are like so light they feel like engineering samples without anything
Yeah,
inside
they're
of them.
not
But
real.
these are
and
not
everything's
bad at all.
glued.
No, but they are incredible. But this is really nice.
Well,
But I don't see where I can add stuff to it. It looks like it's just
Yeah, these are pre-configured for this Snapdragon
32
versions.
gigs of RAM, terabyte drive. That's not enough for Richard.
Okay.
nah, terabyte's enough on the laptop.
I think
got
it's
the
pretty
cloud
good.
in my
I think it's
back,
pretty
right?
good. Yeah.
It does have unmatched CPU performance. So this is a Orion. It's not.
No, that's it. That's Orion
it,
is the CPU.
Is that the SoC or
no, it's the name of the CPU, of course.
Oh, okay.
CPU. Snapdragon is the overall
I see.
stock. Right.
So they don't do the Elite anymore, or is
No, that's it. It's
That
Elite.
is the Elite.
It's X Elite. Yep.
X-Elite? They just call it Orion. Okay, got it. Hey,
no, it's just-
Richard, leave your power adapter behind.
I wouldn't
There
do
you
that.
go.
I wouldn't do that.
It gets it through the air.
No, I think it
Nice.
gets through the USB-C port, but yes.
Okay, close enough. Look at that. It's floating on a rock.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's actually where it's helping that environment just by being there.
Just by being there, it's a very zen moment.
Yeah.
It is built to defy the elements.
It will take a
Mil
bullet to you.
spec 810H. Very nice.
Very fancy.
It exceeds 12 standards, 26 procedures, and 200 plus quality checks. Dude, if you don't buy this, I will. That is awesome. Adreno graphics. No, see, it says up to 64 gigs, so maybe there's a way to talk them into it.
No,
That's what you'd want, right, Richard? 'Cause-
I spec'd out the 64 with the terabyte and the 2880 screen, non-touch screen. Because
Oh,
I don't need fingerprints on my screen.
who needs touch?
Yeah.
If you got a fingerprint reader,
I
that's
got a
all
little
you
red
need to
nub
touch.
for that. As long as you got a red nub, you're
You got
fine.
a nipple. You don't need it.
I don't like using that that used to
No.
be necessary because it was very precise, but now trackpads are much
Like
better.
It's a little carpal tunnel just waiting. to
It
happen.
hurts my finger to use it. Like if I'm so out of shape with it or whatever.
You press too hard.
I got to do the little exercises for my fingertips. I don't know what that was.
Where we going?
Do we find out what red rum means? Yes, we do.
What's red? Yeah, we have. Yeah, we really do know.
Your daughter now knows even.
I know it's the best.
That's hysterical. That's the best when you can share
that's the
these
best.
great movie moments with your children. All right. Well, since you have used up all your Windows stuff, we will get to Apple in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor. No, you have Surface, you have
It's all kinds
Microsoft
of stuff.
365, you've got AI, and of course, the vaunted Xbox, which is the longest segment in the show today.
Yeah.
All coming up, plus a brown liquor.
Going with a classic, a real serious.
Going with a classic.
Yeah,
A one everyone should drink sometime.
comes with a
in their
story,
life.
of course.
Better.
Can't wait. But first, I've got a story about our sponsor. This episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by US Cloud, a name you should know. We've been talking about it for a while. And I was fooled when I first heard the name. I thought, oh, they're a cloud company. Well, sort of. They're the number one Microsoft Unified Support replacement. Oh, I'm liking this. We've been talking for a few months now about US Cloud, the global leader in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises. They support 50 of the Fortune 500. Why? Because it could save you big. Switching to US Cloud could save your business 30 to 50% over Microsoft Unified and Premier support. But wouldn't be any good if it were cheaper but not as good. It's better, twice as fast average time to resolution versus Microsoft and the best engineers in the business. And now they're going to live up to their name because US Cloud has a new offering that will save you money on the cloud. It's their Azure cost optimization services. And I have a feeling this is not something Microsoft will help you do. I mean, really, honestly, when was the last time you evaluated your Azure bill, right? If it's been a while, you probably have some, I don't know, Azure sprawl, I guess they call it, a little spend creep going on. The good news is saving on Azure is easier than you might imagine thanks to US Cloud. They offer an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It identifies key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. Now, you're not on your own with this. You're going to get expert guidance, access to US Cloud's senior engineers with an average of over 16 years with Microsoft products. I mean, these are the best in the business. At the end of the 8 weeks, you will have an interactive dashboard that will identify opportunities. You don't have to do anything, but it'll identify rebuild and downscale opportunities. It'll show you unused resources. I know you want to get rid of those, allowing you to reallocate those precious IT dollars towards needed resources. And how would you like the savings to continue? You could, if you invested that Azure savings in US Cloud's Microsoft support. That's what a few of US Cloud's other customers have done. Completely eliminated their unified spend. Now you're saving big time. The savings just keep on going, as they say. Just ask Sam. He's the technical operations manager at Bede Gaming, B-E-D-E. He gave US Cloud 5 stars. This is the review. Quote, I'm quoting, direct quote. We found some things that have been running for 3 years, which no one was checking. 3 years. These VMs were, I don't know, 10 grand a month, but not not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure, but once you get to $40,000 or $50,000 a month, it really starts to add up. Do you think you might have some Azure VMs that have been running unused for 3 years? Stop overpaying for Azure. Identify and eliminate Azure creep. Boost your performance, and you can do it all in just 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com. Book a call today to find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today and get faster Microsoft support for less. uscloud.com. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. I hope you've checked them out. If you haven't, this is the occasion to do it. uscloud.com. All righty. Let's just a little Apple talk.
Well, I'm going to relate it to Microsoft and Windows, though.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Yeah. But mostly by explaining how much Windows is terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I kid.
No, you kid. He kids.
But there were some interesting things going on with macOS that aren't all new to this new version they just announced. But like their embrace of glass is kind of weird. It's like we did this a long time ago.
But Arrow was a little sluggish, right? I mean, Arrow was in XP. It was a little too soon. Maybe
it was
Arrow was
Vista,
and then
Vista.
the driver
I
crisis. Yeah,
it was a driver issue, but that this is the Microsoft can't win thing, right? Like, in other words, everyone's all upset that Microsoft can't innovate like Apple can, and you're ever going to do this stuff? And it's like, okay, so we're going to do this hardware accelerated graphics thing like Apple has. Like, oh, it doesn't run on my computer, like it's just like the Windows audience in a nutshell is just like we're never happy. So
yeah, it's not just us. They also. The vendors weren't happy either because Microsoft pushed them to update the drivers to support this stuff for existing chipsets. And they're just like, no, I'm not doing it. Only the new ones.
Yeah, right.
And that's, part of why the customers were so angry.
Yeah. Passage of time, better drivers from Intel in particular. I should say better integrated graphics chipsets from Intel in particular kind of helped put Arrow over the edge. And then by the time it finally worked great, they got rid of it. So, Microsoft, classic. The Windows XP UI only lasted for one major version of the OS. I mean, I know there were variants of it, and of course it was in market for a long time as well, but that UI did not scale. It was bitmaps. If you had a really high resolution display, the icon, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I bet the icons only went up to maybe 256 pixels, whereas the ones on Apple were really scalable, et cetera, et cetera. So we fix problems. Sometimes they take a while, but the couple of things I just want to point out that are interesting to me on the Mac, which we can replicate to some degree on Windows, right, are there's two major ones. Spotlight, which everyone loves, and including people's on Windows, by the way, because PowerToys has ripped it off twice, right? So there's something called PowerToys Run, which most people are familiar with. I think by default, it's Alt space will bring up this interface in the middle of the screen. That's Spotlight, right? Except for Windows. It's a launcher. It's extensible to some degree, but there's now a newer version of it called the Windows Command Palette, and that one is explicitly extensible, and they're trying to kind of build this ecosystem around it. If you're a power user, this kind of interface is probably preferable to Start because it kind of does everything that Start can do and more. It does search and it does all kinds of things. In Tahoe, what they're doing is integrating it with Shortcuts and with some other things. And Shortcuts is their automation platform. Shortcuts is actually really powerful, and this is across across their major platforms. So it's on iOS, it's on iPad, it's on Mac OS.
It does seem to be a unification push, right?
Yeah, it's pretty,
a la, Dave Cutler one core.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So the closest we have to that on Windows is Power Automate. And there's a version of Power Automate that is included with Windows 11, by the way. I think basically no one even knows it exists. I don't know that anyone uses it for much, but if you looked at any of the keynote stuff or you were paid attention to this and you're like, I wish we could have this in Windows. Like, to me, like the two biggest things are basically on Windows. They're maybe not exactly the same. But I've just hit the tip of the iceberg on these things as they are in Tahoe, and I have to say they're pretty amazing. So that's something.
You want a Mac here? Is that what you're doing?
No, I have a Mac. I don't like Mac OS for the most part, but like those features to me are pretty cool. The Mac does a much better job with full screen, for example. Like although there's also inconsistencies to it, but the Mac has this notion of full screen apps. You swipe on the trackpad, which we can do in Windows, right? 3 fingers, go back and forth between apps, etc. It's just more elegant on the Mac. It works better, etc. I don't know if Richard, if you've ever just talked about this kind of thing on .NET Rocks per se, but one of the big things with XAML, when this was introduced as part of Avalon at the time, but Windows Presentation Foundation, was it's an XML-based declarative language for, in this case, creating the user interface for an app, basically.
Right.
And it's a partial class with the C# code that sits behind it, and you can mix and match, and it's
there's enough
powerful.
different ways to do things. You can guarantee that nobody can understand your code.
100%. I'm literally today struggling with data binding in WPF. It's horrific. It's also incredibly
one of the few
powerful.
places where ChatGPT will reliably go, dunno.
Exactly. Or they'll just be like, here's the answer. You're like, yeah, that's not the answer. Like, yeah, I got nothing. They're like, yeah, we tried. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I gave you that answer.
No, you're right. It didn't work, and nothing will work, and
I was buying time. I was trying to crash. I don't know what happened there, but sorry. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, right? So, but I would say WPF, when it was introduced to the Windows world, originally in 2003 as Avalon, and then really in 2000, whatever that was, 6, was so powerful. It was like technology handed down to us by aliens. Like it was like we found it in a crash. We didn't really understand it, but we just shipped it, and here you go, build stuff with it. And we know Microsoft sat on it for many, many years and didn't do anything. But the thing that's happened in more recent years with things like Flutter and then with Swift UI in the Apple world is a new type of declarative programming style, where you're writing in the same language that the code behind is written in. So Dart in the case of Flutter, or Swift in the case of Swift UI, right? And so this is something I've been looking at too, because I've been really, really struggling with WPF. Like I said, also the Windows App SDK, because if you thought WPF was complicated, don't worry, it gets worse. Yeah. We need this. We need this so bad. Are you aware of anything like this? Like, in other words, I'd like C#. I would like to write declarative. It's like actually functional programming, by the way. It's like a declarative functional style of describing a user interface with very little code.
I mean, I would argue the
TypeScript.
Yeah, no, that's a little too low level. When it comes to UX for multiple devices,
right,
Flutter seems to be the most declarative approach if you're okay with Google and you only care about Android and iOS. I got to give respect to both the Uno guys and the Avalonia guys.
Yeah, but those are basically WPF style things that are XAML based, right?
Yeah, and a little narrow in scope and a little more focused. And again, both solve the Android iOS problem fairly well, and then struggle to go to larger formats. Although, there are believers in all those spaces, so I've now made a lot of people angry.
Yeah, in other words, you have like a WPF app, meaning a Windows desktop app, and presumably or hopefully with, say, Uno or whatever, you could take that code base and with a bit of finessing, make it run on the Mac, right? Which, by the way, interesting. But I just look at the, Swift UI has got to be 5-6 years old now. It's something I've not looked at a lot. I'm stuck in this kind of XAML mindset thing. But when I look at what they're doing and I look at how it works, I think to myself, this handles all of the problems. State management without any crazy data binding problems. Like it looks beautiful.
Yep.
So I wish they put it on Windows.
If you were starting from scratch and you only care about the phones, I would go Flutter. But the days of Silverlight are behind us, friend, for getting to the Mac.
No, I know. I only care about Windows, so I'm in a real hole. There's nothing. I could use React Native, I guess. And Leo mentioned
TypeScript and React Native. You're gonna love it. What are you crazy?
It's because I've used JavaScript before and I hate JavaScript. But
TypeScript is more functional, much nicer.
Yeah. It's about making more maintainable JavaScript ultimately.
It has is it type safety? Thus the name, right?
Yeah, it's TypeScript, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I don't blame you for hating JavaScript, but I think if you used a subset of JavaScript, you might be happier.
Right.
And there's never a solution though.
I know.
That's as good as native, is there?
I met a guy I've never met before, but I just know from online and stuff, who works on .NET MAUI, which is the former Xamarin Forums.
Right.
And I wanted to talk to him about this.
It's also pulled WPF and all of the other things under it too, right? Like fundamentally, MAUI is a political consolidation within Microsoft of all of the UX platforms.
It is functionally broken. I mean, I don't know how anyone uses this product.
It's very challenging.
My wife woke up, I think it was Sunday morning, and said, what's wrong? And I said, what do you mean? She's like, you were yelling at someone on the phone. And I said, no, I was yelling at my computer and I was yelling at someone in Redmond who works on Maui. And I don't even know the guy.
I'm
and I'm
sure
really
you're yelling at David Art now, just to be clear. So
yeah, I try not to name names here. I love the guy. He's super nice. But
David
this thing is, it's just broken. I don't understand. Like, what is going on with this thing? Anyway, so this is my world. And then I look at like what's going on with Swift UI, and I'm like, oh God, we need something like
to me, it really speaks to this is an unsolved problem, that there's this many stacks. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's got a good answer here.
Yeah. I mean, I was delighted that they brought back WPF. And now I realize maybe that wasn't the greatest idea in the world. And that may be.
I would argue they just haven't committed to it sufficiently.
No, that's true too. But I know there was like a XAML Islands thing that probably still does something, but it's possible that the better approach would be to like, look, if you want to modernize your app, create the front end in WinUI 3 and / Windows App SDK, and just Microsoft should provide the way to bind it to the stuff you've already done on the back end. So we're just going to mix and match like your existing WPF backend with this new WinUI 3 front end. That would have been a way better approach. Like re-implementing every single control, but doing it in a half-assed way and not every single control, most controls, is the most Microsoft thing I've said since you can't Windows Hello in the dark 10 minutes ago. So it's like, this is the world that we live in. It's like, and I'm sure what I just described is a hard computer science problem. I'm sure there were reasons.
But it's also a political battle. Like XAML Islands was originally a .NET Core 3 problem. And then when they wanted to go to .NET 5, they actually deferred to the WinUI 3 XAML Islands implementation. But now, where's the WinUI 3 roadmap? Like, who can navigate? I mean, I do this as a job, and I'm struggling to keep track of who's fighting with whom about what here. Much less how anybody actually builds software and expects it to be able to use a new version the next month.
It almost feels malicious. Like I'm old. Like Visual Basic, we can all agree, was in many ways ridiculous. Certainly as a language, it was ridiculous. But here's the thing: you could build a UI visually, and then you would wire up each of the controls with some kind of event handler, write a little bit of code, and the app did something. Like it worked. And in WPF, what I just said is hilarious. And as things as simple as I would like this control to be some system color that's defined in a resource dictionary somewhere. That is not how it works. And it's just the sheer number of lines of code you have to write to do the simplest little thing in the world makes this untenable for most people. It's just unworkable.
Here's the hello world from React. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's a little wordy, but
but you're creating, look what you're creating. This is a whole standalone app. Look, let me go to iOS.
So by the way,
this is an emulator. I'm going to launch it.
This is very much like Swift UI.
Yeah, if you look at this, you're probably comfortable with it.
Yep.
You know, you have to do a little.
But you can read it. You can actually read even as a non-programmer, you could read this and say, I think I know what this does.
Right.
You know,
I mean, it's simple. It says hello world.
No,
but
I know
you
that,
could say hello, hello Paul. And you can, by the way, I love it that you can do this in real time, just like Swift UI. So you can see, that's what it's going to look like. Yeah. Add controls, add stuff. And this is portable across iOS, Android. I also feel like the web.
Well, there's React Native too, by the way, for Windows. And
that's what this is, React Native. Oh, so it's everything.
It would work on Windows too. Yeah.
It would work everywhere.
Yep.
But see, I feel like web development is safer because that's always going to work, right?
Everybody's got one.
Yeah,
everybody's got one.
Everyone has it. It's going to work everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right.
Context is trusted. Your IT people hate you least with that deployment. I'm not saying
the thing is, I hate myself. So what I want to do is something that hurts me a lot and as often as possible.
Well, that's definitely software development full.
Yeah, WPF is perfect for that. It's it's just custom tailored for people like me.
I kind of promised myself I'd never learn a platform-specific API ever again.
I would also say this, and it's been an ongoing, one of the things that coming out of South Africa, talking to all those young people, is learning new platforms today, just not that big a deal.
I know.
The training's better, the materials are better, the tools are better, like everything's better. Yeah. Once upon a time, if you're committing to a stack, it's because you were about to do 9 to 18 months of sprinting on that stack. So you can argue for a couple of weeks to choose it. But when you're going to get an MVP in less than a month, who cares? Just use something. Go.
Yeah, get it done.
Debating it will take longer than building it.
And this web platform, JavaScript, React, et cetera, is so well documented, so well used that the AI you're going to use to get help with this is going to have ample resources to draw from. It's,
now you're talking about a really interesting filter, Paul, which is that I choose a language based on who's got the best model in my LLM for it.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
Which is
nowadays
twisted.
that's probably better to do that than anything else. Let me show you what I use to press my shirts. Hold on a second here.
What?
Well, young people probably won't remember this.
Okay.
But in the old days, in order to learn how to program to a platform, you'd have a thing.
Oh, I see. Like, yes. Oh, yes.
This is
I owned every
Macintosh.
one of those books.
Yes. Well, you actually wrote one of them. If you
Well, I was going to say, those
Delphi,
books make my book look like a pamphlet.
together, excellent for pressing things.
By the way, so we just talked about Dan Ackerman, right? The man who just passed away from Apple. Jesus, Ackerman. What's his first name?
I have to turn on my camera so I can talk to you. Bill Atkinson.
Bill Ackerman. Sorry, Atkinson. I'm so geez,
Atkinson.
Okay. So everyone knows him from Quick Draw and Round Rec and all that kind of stuff.
He's pretty much the author.
I was going to say, do you know the first thing that he did was he wrote Apple Pascal?
That's right.
Which is the language they used for all that stuff on the Mac.
This is all in Pascal.
It's all Pascal. Yep.
Which Delphi is also, by the way.
I know that. Yes.
So that's pretty funny, isn't it?
For a long time that's all that Anders Halsberg was making, right? Was various flavors of Pascal.
Yeah.
One might argue that C# is a new flavor of Pascal. I mean, I know Java, when he did the whatever that framework was for Java, Visual, J++, whatever
J++,
it was.
Yeah.
Object Pascal, but for Java, basically. I mean, Yep.
No, he had a very strong opinion about type systems and frameworks and so forth, which, by the way, has helped a lot of. So, I bought a house on the back of
that. to bring that full circle,
not necessarily not the house for the quality. That's just how difficult it was.
But he's also the creator of TypeScript, right?
Right.
Yes.
So before he retires, I'd like to have him set his sight on a, functional, declarative language for building. Maybe it could be cross-platform. That's fine. Something that's like
very out of character for him. This is a statically typed.
I know.
Procedural kind of guy. Like, that's not how he makes things. That would be wildly out of character for him.
I won't say anything, but everything just gets better as it gets closer and closer to Common Lisp. But I'm just saying. It's actually dynamic typing, so you don't have to write all those static types out.
Yes. The dynamic typing is awesome.
Dynamic
as long as you only have to write the code once and never touch it again.
What's the better thing than that?
Want,
it's like, how about, Leo, how going to take you one? I'm going to take that and raise you to 10. How about we do no typing and we'll call it JavaScript? And we'll just say it could be whatever you think it could be.
Yeah.
You want to assign a number to that variable that used to be a string? Go to 10.
Well, that's the nice thing about dynamic typing. It has some protections against that.
Okay. Oh boy! I mean, in what was it? The guy from Brave who wrote JavaScript,
Bernard Ike.
Yeah. In his defense, he did write it in about 13 minutes, so it came together pretty quick. But
that's why I think the derivatives like TypeScript are probably a good way.
Yeah.
What is Microsoft's version? Is it?
That's it. TypeScript.
That's TypeScript. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're probably a good way to go. Right? It's just the good parts, as they say.
Good enough for the Angular team.
Just the good parts.
Right.
Yeah.
I know web frameworks aren't 100% native, but it feels to me. By the way,
who cares
things
about
that's coming
honestly.
along with the new Apple 26s
Yep.
is support for basically web apps. They're not calling it PWA, but it's very aggressive support for web apps,
Which is curious because Apple has done everything they can
killed
to prevent
PWA.
this from being a thing. Yep.
between them and Firefox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's when I talk about PWA in one of my keynotes, I always say, let's face it, PWA is an amazing set of functionality, and you use exactly one thing. You put an icon on the phone so that you can fool normal mortals into thinking that's an app. And that's all they wanted. They just want an icon.
And on desktop, there's some class of people who likes they want the Spotify web app or whatever it is to run looking like an app, like a web browser tab. And we can do that too.
That's what people are using Electron for, which is kind of sad, but
well,
better than nothing.
The power of the icon's a big deal. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but many, 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 many years ago, I was working with a university. We built an app using ActiveX controls in IE.
Yep.
And they were very happy with it. They had one professor who thought that Microsoft had killed Netscape, and so hated everything that was Microsoft and would refuse to use it. He couldn't use IE. And the answer literally was
No way.
to put it in a use Visual Basic to put it in a web view and change the icon to the Netscape icon.
I was thinking about this. So with Chrome and now Edge in Windows 10 and 11, right? Microsoft is, faces this uphill battle. Like one of the big successes of Chrome, like we see with OpenAI and ChatGPT in the AI space, is they're getting past the power of the defaults. Like Chrome is a thing people just go like they use Safari, they use Edge, they install this thing, and they use this other thing. Like this is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So how do you get like Edge does everything that Chrome can do, literally everything. And I was just thinking about this, like change the icon. Just make it look like Chrome. I bet people, they would never know, know? I'm not saying that's ethical, but that's why it's right at Microsoft's wheelhouse. I mean, just go
let's
for
face it. Like the Edge icon's just not that far from the Chrome icon right now. It's a blue swirly versus a multicolored swirly, but they're both just swirlies.
They're both just swirlies.
There's your title right there.
It's like when you lick your finger and you hit someone in the belly button.
Right in the ear.
Okay. Anyway.
Tell us about your Surface laptop. I know it's nothing but happiness. Every bit
Richard
of this is happiness.
Richard is slowly rejecting his Surface Studio.
No, Richard should do the right thing for Richard. I wouldn't push him toward.
I'm pretty sure I'm holding out for the next chipset. It's only a few months.
Yeah, that could do it too.
The AMD.
Yeah, no, I just coincidentally, I put something aside, like I should write about this. We must be coming up on the 1 year anniversary.
It's been a year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I looked today, it was a year ago today. I'm like, oh, I should probably write this today.
Happy birthday.
I think the debate in Discord is this the worst launch of all time or the second worst launch of all time?
People say that because Microsoft sold this stuff based on these local AI experiences that at the time didn't amount to anything and today amount to very little. So one of the things that I write again in this article is like, this isn't why you care about this kind of a product. But the reason you do care about it is that some of the stuff we mentioned earlier, which is that when I open the laptop lid of these things I'm reviewing over here that are running Intel or AMD chips, the latest versions, doesn't matter. You're just spinning the roulette wheel to see what's going to happen because the reliability there is terrible. They have improved, compared to what they were before. That's a low bar. I mean, compared to what you see on the Snapdragon stuff, it's not even close. So for just basic reliability, consistent performance that doesn't nosedive when you're on battery, the efficiency stuff, compatibility across the board is fantastic. My wife is using one of these computers. I didn't even tell her. I just gave her the computer. I said, "Here's your new computer." She's been using it for 6 weeks. She hasn't had any problems. And, people who don't use these are always like, "Oh, it doesn't run this. It doesn't do that. It doesn't blah, blah, blah." It's like, yeah, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. So I've never had any major compatibility issues. Today I have zero compatibility issues. It works with everything. But the thing about this to me is just, it's that combination of things like big screen, which I love, perfect keyboard, trackpad, everything's great. And uptime, when I wrote my review of this thing in last July, it was like 10 and a half hours average. I just looked over the past month. It's been over 12 hours. Like it's off the charts. Like I love this thing. I love it. The only issue I've ever had, which happened right when we came back from Mexico, so about a month ago, was I was typing it on one day and it wasn't typing the letter S consistently. So I'd hit S and it'd be like nothing, 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 S, nothing, nothing, nothing. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
No,
so I thought maybe
can't work with that.
Yeah, I type S a lot. So I think this article I checked, there were 371 letter S's just in this one article. So I'm like, I need the letter S.
Yeah.
I have a warranty that goes through next year, so Microsoft would have fixed it for free. But I blew air under it. I didn't want to pop the key off because God knows me, I would never get it back on.
If you're going to get it back on again, yeah.
I looked into self-repair. This thing's supposedly really repairable. I guess it is if you want something that's in the back, but to get to the keyboard, you go through the back,
the whole thing apart,
and you have to go through all the components that are in between you and the keyboard. And there are like 21 of them. So I'm not taking out the SSD and the whatever, like it's all these different parts. It's crazy. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll just actually get this fixed. That kind of stinks. I wasn't expecting to do that. But they said, all right, first you got to run the Surface diagnostic utility. So you sit there for about 15 minutes. Some of it's interactive. You draw on the screen, you do whatever you do. It has nothing to do with my problem. It asked if there was anything else. And I said, yeah, when I hit the S key, it doesn't hit anything. It doesn't work. And then it's like, beep, beep, beep. Like, all right, it's fine. And I was like, okay. And then I'm like, well, let's see. Yes, but it works fine. Like it's worked fine ever since. Like I have no idea how it fixed that. I have no idea why it didn't work sometimes, but now it's fixed. So it's been
Why is
working.
there software in the keyboard?
I don't know. I can't explain these things. But anyway, if you're looking for a MacBook Air style computer, there's a 13.8, a 15-inch version. I mean, 10.5 to 12 hours of battery life. The performance is incredible. The screen's awesome. I love this thing so much. I just love it.
And the main reason it's better than a MacBook Air is it doesn't run macOS. Is that the answer?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a Mac OS that runs Windows.
The Mac is thinner and lighter. It's a lot thinner, a little lighter. Technically, this has more ports. I mean, whatever that means. They both have their own little proprietary power thing, which you don't use anyway, so nobody cares.
You use USB-C.
Yep. But yeah, they're comparable. I mean, I think that in the Windows world, this is probably the thing that looks from a distance. You'd be like, yeah, those are the same computer. And it's easy to kind of mock Microsoft for that. I guess there's nothing innovative about that, but that's what I want. I want something that looks like that, but it's not that, right? Like, and as every year when Apple improves, like the reason I just discussed Tahoe is I always look at the new version. I was thinking, I never know. And then you use Mac for a little while and you're like, oh yeah, it's the Mac. I don't like the Mac. I just don't like it. But yeah, the stuff that people like, the compatibility stuff, nonsense. The complaints about the local AI stuff, valid, but it doesn't get in the way. It just doesn't matter. Yeah. There's no cellular connectivity option. That's not a deal for me. I don't care about that. But the thing that really cracks me up about this the most, and this was true when I got it, and it's more true now, is I still get pushback from people who are like, well, I have this scanner I bought in 1979 and blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, guys, there's class drivers for everything. I mean, when I first got it, I had one app and one piece of hardware that didn't work. And today I have zero. Everything works. So I use a lot of stuff. I use stuff here. I have different stuff in Mexico. I never have any problems with this thing ever. And even when there's something like a file system add-in, like the Synology Drive client, integrates, no problem, syncs, no problem, works every day, no problem. And it's like, oh, it's running emulated. Yeah. How do you know?
Whatever.
How do you know?
Yeah.
It's
why would
fine.
You care?
Nobody cares.
Do the job.
Yep. It's a fantastic computer. And I should say a fantastic platform. So that thing, the three big ones for me last year were the one I bought, the one that you're thinking about buying, but the AMD version would be great too. And then the other one was the IdeaPad. I don't remember I think it was IdeaPad S, which is also semi close to.
No, I think I think I'm going to hold out for the Snapdragon 2 for the laptop, and I'm going to build an AMD desktop machine.
Nice, there you go. I think you're going to love
best
the AMD
of both
stuff.
worlds. That's a good idea.
And I'll still have one, the Intel machine.
I should say the one thing the one thing where Snapdragon today does fall short is gaming, right? I mean, I don't know why.
That's mostly the cheat system problem.
But it's also just basic emulation, performance, and compatibility. Like
the troubling bug has been a lot of the software requires anti-cheat software to run, which runs a lot of Ring 0 stuff, which ARM's just like, nope.
Well, I know. I mean,
the game won't even start.
Qualcomm wants to fix those problems, but I mean, to me, it's like, guys, this is a premium laptop. This is for people getting work done. That stuff works great. I mean, across the board, like all the creator software, everything, a lot of that stuff is native now too, which is amazing. The Adobe stuff is native. It's all pretty amazing. So that stuff's fine. But yeah, if you play video games, then don't get this. But other than that,
it appeals to me to have one of each, right? I got a Gen 13 Intel. It's my main work machine. This thing's the old one, the old Intel machine. It could probably be made into AMD, or maybe I'll switch them. I don't know.
Right.
Figure it out.
Semi-related to this, Microsoft released a firmware update for this product and also for the Surface Pro 11 that were released at the same time. And if you go back in time and look at the firmware updates they released for these machines, they're basically identical for the most part. But in April, they released one for my computer that was never documented, like ever. And that happens a lot with Surface. Like there'll be a firmware update, and then you look to see what's in it, and there's nothing on the site about it. And then maybe a week or two later, they finally put something up about it. So at that time in April, I looked to see what it was. I installed it, whatever. Maybe that was the S thing. Maybe it killed the S key. I don't know. But No, because it was working after, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is they never documented it. So I'm like, did I even see that? Like you kind of
Was
dug
it even
yourself.
really a thing? Yeah.
In the documentation for the June update, it mentions resolves an issue introduced in the April 2025 release that prevented ... which is still not, it has never been documented. The last one on their site is from January. So Surface Pro, I don't know if there was an April one as well, but Surface Pro, according to the site, last was updated in January, firmware wise. And it's a laundry list that when they do these firmware updates, it's often like a driver update for almost every component in the system, which has nothing to do with Qualcomm. It's Microsoft just does this. It's the way they do things. So if you do have one of these computers, you should probably install that. And then maybe your S key will work. I don't know. I can't promise that.
Don't know why that worked. I'm positive that it did. Yeah, that upsets me.
My daughter has a Chromebook that the question mark key is broken and the U key is broken, and she somehow manages to she cuts and pastes in those keys.
No. Right.
She won't let me get her a new one. But
that's by the way, I did that with this computer for a little while because you'd finally get the S to work, copy it. And then every time you need an S, control V it. Let me tell you something. The letter S, it's a lot of control Ving.
Yeah, it's a lot of control V.
I'm trying to get work done, and I'm like, I have to think
that's
like
a lot of S's. It was the largest volume in the World Book Encyclopedia. I remember that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bad key. Like, Q I could have lived with maybe. Yeah. That's a tough one.
Just as a reminder, because if we have an ad, we'll stick it in here. You're watching. Okay. Well, we'll try to be gentle. You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, both at their respective homes in North America.
Nice.
Yep.
I guess. I don't know.
No, that's correct.
Where do you consider home, Paul?
I now tell the story of Richard explaining this to me about a month ago because I sort of think of both places as home.
Yeah.
And, like here is home, there is home, whatever. And Richard says, let me ask you a question. Where do you own real estate? And I was like, okay,
in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably own something here soon.
As you think so? You're going to, okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to have both.
You're getting serious.
But when he said that, I was like, yeah, no, I can't really say. That's pretty much it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because, it's like you could talk about what's important to you, but it's like, where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time?
Exactly.
That's
well, exactly. They say when you move back to city, it's like I only roll in real estate on the coast right now.
Nice. Yeah.
And every time I consider buying a place down in the city again, like I have a buddy, the only thing better than owning real estate in the city is having a friend who owns real estate in the city who isn't using it.
Right.
So nice.
Like, why aren't you going to that apartment? Okay, I'll go to your apartment.
Yeah.
And yes, I know Mexico is also in North America. Thank you very much. That's basically why I say it.
There was a map on Fox News that was like the different Mexicos. And it was not a joke. They were like Mexico, South Mexico, whatever. They referred to all of Latin America as Mexico. So it's like, guys, it's not all Mexico.
No.
Well, and to be clear, Mexico, the actual country, is very diverse. A huge array of environments and cultures and so forth.
Yep.
Like,
and it's very affordable. I was looking at a beachfront house down in Puerto Vallarta, and I'm sorry, Puerto Escondido, which is south of Puerto Vallarta in Oaxaca, and you can get a pretty nice house for a tenth of what you'd pay here.
Oh, easy.
I'd like to.
You're talking about California, my friend. So you got
that's
your own
true.
level
We
of
pay
crazy.
the top price. Yeah. But see, I'll be selling my California house to move.
I feel like if we had gone to Oaxaca as one of our first trips,
isn't it a great city?
We might have bought a place there. Like not in Mexico City. Like I love Mexico City.
But you get all the cosmopolitan features because Oaxaca's not very cosmopolitan.
Yeah, you like your urban living.
That's part of what I like about it. It's real. Like it feels like it's a real place.
Real.
It's really
real, baby. Yeah, it's real.
Plus, I really like.
I thought the rural part of living on the coast would bother me, and it's the main feature.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
That and gigabit Ethernet, everything is solvable.
Right. Well, we have gigabit internet in Roma Norte, so that is a thing.
Oh, really? That's nice.
My connection there is my connection there is faster than it is here, and it comes in on the sticky little black wire that looks like nothing, but
yeah,
it works great.
That's what it is. It's a dinky little wire with glass inside. That's all it is.
I'm doing my new really Geek Out talk for the fall for the festival is the undersea cable network.
There you go.
Ooh. That'll be fun.
I'm really enjoying writing it. It's been,
That will be really, that's a fascinating.
It's a great topic. Yeah.
Topic.
Really fun.
Oh, I wish I could go see it. Do you ever record any of these?
Yep. They're on YouTube.
Oh, nice. I definitely want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
I was
all the energy ones, the space ones, the nuclear power, all that stuff's on there. And that one will be up there by the end of the year.
I was walking, taking a walk in the neighborhood a little while ago, and I looked up at the wires overhead, and I saw these snowshoes looking things in the wires, and I thought, what the hell are those? So I took a picture of it.
Yep.
And I
like a
uploaded
hockey
it to
mask
ChatGPT, and I said, "What the hell is that?" They said, "Oh, that's a fiber optic cable. That's to take up the slack, so they could put more cable in than they need, and then extend it." And I thought, we don't have fiber optic in this neighborhood, except I guess we do.
Yeah, or you will soon.
Isn't that the best thing about AI, though? I mean, I thought maybe it was a little landing place for pigeons. I didn't know what it was.
You thought that's what it was. You're like, maybe they could build a nest. It's nice.
And then I thought, you know what's changed in this world? I don't have to wonder. I could take a picture of it and ask my
and
little
it'll just
friend.
answer it for you.
I at the time I described this as him inventing Google search, but when my son was like 5 or something, he goes, someone should invent this thing where you can go and ask it any question, it will give you the answer. And I'm like, oh, Mark, you'll be delighted to know that exists.
Guess what?
We've
got it.
Yeah, now it's even better.
Yep. All right, let's continue on with everybody's favorite topic, Microsoft 365.
So this one was interesting to me because I saw headlines about it and it made it seem like it was serious and really negative. And I was like, okay, so, and as I wrote this, I originally wrote it as the Better Business Bureau has given Microsoft recommendations about how it might promote Microsoft 365 Copilot. But then the more I read this thing that they wrote, and then I read Microsoft's response, I realized, no, it's actually worse than that. And so there's something called the National Advertising Division, which is part of the Better Business Bureau. By the way, not part of the federal government. It's just an organization, but Microsoft belongs to it. And they examined the claims that Microsoft made for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And so when you go through them in order, it starts off pretty good, right? So one of the claims is it can generate, summarize, and rewrite content in Office document files. And you're like, okay. So it's like, it says, here's the claim Microsoft makes. They say with no limitations on file size, length, number of files, blah, blah, blah. And they said, actually, that's what it does. The product that Microsoft made substantiates this claim. That's the way, the kind of contorted the way they said it. There are some limitations to Copilot, obviously, but it doesn't impact how people use the product. They were like, it's fine. So that was one of 3 big bullet items. And I was like, oh, this is not going to be as bad as I thought it was. And then I got to the second one. The second one is use it across apps and business chat. And so if you're familiar with Copilot for Microsoft 365, you know that you can bring up Word or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever, and it's integrated into the product. And you can ask it questions and you have it create content for you, and that stuff works fine. But apparently they make the same claims for what this organization calls business chat. I think it's just called Copilot chat or whatever, but whatever the name of the thing is. And they're like,
when you saw business chat, I thought Teams.
Yeah. You're right. Teams. Right. Wherever you might chat with this thing outside of one of those apps. And they were like, it doesn't do that. And so it sounds like a recommendation. It says Microsoft should modify the advertising to clearly and conspicuously disclose any material limitations related to how business chat assists users. And I was like, all right, well, okay. So I guess they're saying it doesn't actually do this thing. They're recommending that Microsoft maybe be a little clearer about that. It's kind of like the Apple intelligence stuff where they had it on their website and they had ads and people like, you're advertising this thing, but it doesn't really exist and maybe you should change that. Now there are class action lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera. But the third one was productivity and return on investment. This is important because this is aimed at the business market, right? This is what everyone's looking for. So the numbers vary, but it's something like 67 to 75% of Copilot users claim they are more productive after some period of time of usage. That varies again by the group. And so the Better Business Bureau looked at the study and they were like, yeah, it doesn't say that. They were like, our recommendation.
Even the way that's phrased is like, doesn't mean they are more productive. They just feel more.
They're like, we're not even sure how you're defining productivity. So I don't know how you got this measurement, but this study that you're citing as evidence does not show what you said it shows.
Right.
So their recommendation was just continue this advertising.
Ditch this, yeah. This is
so I was
not
like,
true.
Okay. So it kind of escalates, right? And I'm like, all right, well, Microsoft issues a statement, says we disagree with certain elements of their conclusions, but then they just said, but we're going to do everything they said. Like they're actually going to make all these changes. It's like, interesting. And I think it might be partly because of what happened with Apple. Like groups are starting to go after these companies making claims for AI.
Yeah.
And the last thing Microsoft needs.
I think a group of lawyers have figured out there's money to be made going after these.
Plus, ironically, they can use AI to write the briefs and cite, previous cases, et cetera. Exactly. Yeah.
And they definitely claim an increase in productivity.
And I was going to say, this lawyer will be like, and I was 80% more productive thanks to this, even better than what Microsoft claims. So it's
there you go. Now
I was
kind of jail, but other than that,
I was just kind of fascinated. They completely caved like immediately. Like they're like, no, we're just going to do it. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and again, the other thing is that's the statement. What are they actually going to do?
Yeah. Well, modify. Well, in other words, a lot of if you go to the Microsoft site, right? Any site, Apple does the same thing. Claims, right? Pictures. It's very pretty. There's always these little asterisks or footnote numbers, and you go down to the bottom, and it's like 1-point type. And if you bring out your, zoom in the page, you say, it doesn't actually do this, or we'll say something like, so
these claims did not be validated.
Yeah, it's probably that kind of a qualifier, but we'll see. I'm kind of curious now. Because I thought like this is kind of a non-story, but then as I read it, I was like, okay, actually these get worse as you go, and then Microsoft's like, yep, we're going to do it all. Like, okay, wow, okay, just like the DMA, like whatever you want, that's fine. Arguably the biggest news of the week, though, is this escalating war that we always knew was coming between OpenAI and Microsoft, right? It's a matter of time. And it still hasn't.
You want to restructure, and we want to know how our investment is going to land on that. And by that, we mean we want to maximize our investment.
Yeah. So both of these companies have some leverage of some kind over the other. I will say, we've talked about this, but just to be clear, Microsoft invested in OpenAI. It has certain rights that it could prevent it from restructuring.
It could block the whole thing. Yeah.
It could block all of it.
One of the main ones. It has a say in whether they restructure or not.
Right. Microsoft is apparently not happy that OpenAI just announced they're buying Windsurf for $3 billion, a product that competes with GitHub Copilot. Microsoft is like, I think we're done doing all this AI infrastructure build out for you. Maybe you should go somewhere else for some of that kind of stuff. This is fascinating to me. So this is from the Wall Street Journal, so it's not like Bob's rumor site, but based on internal documentation, found that OpenAI is considering actually making a formal antitrust complaint to regulators to get it out of this deal, right? So Microsoft has invested, I believe the total is $13 billion. They own some percentage of OpenAI. They get a percentage of their revenues.
It was 49%, but there was a bunch of...
That's pretty cold. So they're basically turning state's evidence on. Yeah. Yep.
That's
so cold.
They're a stoolie. So I listen, it's genius in a way, and it's evil genius in a way, which is what I would expect of the robots over at OpenAI. It's kind of beautiful in that sense. But I guess the deal that they brought to Microsoft for when they restructure was, you will now own, I think it was 33% of the company. And they were like, no, I think we own 49% of the company.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we want it to be 39%. They're like, we want it to be 100%. Everyone wants something. We're just saying we own 49%. So this is the kind of back and forth that's going on. Right. And so
this feels all like brinksmanship.
Yep.
This is what happens when there's a lot of money at stake.
It's a lot of money. Well, and it's not the money. Microsoft's got plenty of money. It's the 400 million monthly users.
Right.
They have not. Yes. What are they? 30?
Well, that's the thing. So this was also in the Wall Street Journal. I don't believe it's mentioned in this article, but some months ago, a year ago, whatever it was, a long time ago, they did a report on pickup of users on different AIs. And ChatGPT, like I said, is the Chrome of this world. It's just astonishingly successful. And that crosses different boundaries. Like I mentioned this before. I know there are so many normal kind of mainstream non-technical users that I know who are paying for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, it's crazy. But then there are people who, whatever, you're an Apple guy, a Microsoft guy, whatever you are, a developer, maybe whatever it is, which is what this Codex and this Windsurf acquisition, et cetera, targeting developers. It's OpenAI is like everything. And then there's like everyone else. And then it's, well, I don't remember the numbers, but it was, Gemini and Anthropic and whatever else. But way down at the bottom, Microsoft, Copilot, and it was nothing. It was like this sliver, and it never really grew from whatever number they hit, back when they first launched this stuff.
Because they've not been able to persuade the enterprise to move on to this.
So this is a uniquely Microsoft problem of today. Like we'll talk about Xbox later, but one of the
is it Microsoft failing in the consumer space is not novel, right? Like, well, that's what this really is.
Oh, okay. Actually, that's a good point. I wasn't going to say it that way, but okay, fair enough. The way I was going to phrase it was, There's this growing belief that Microsoft would never acknowledge unless they killed the product, that maybe they've hit a limit, like an upper limit on who will subscribe to like Game Pass in the Xbox space.
That's
and
fair.
Maybe they've already hit a limit of a similar type with Copilot. Like there's this stuff that's kind of free that you get in Windows, and I don't, probably in Office too, but to actually get someone to pay is a big leap. And for a lot of people in our space, for whatever reason, that's where they draw the line.
Look, I'm a sysadmin. I talk to a lot of sysadmins. None of us want to install any of this. The only way we'll get it installed is when an ROI shows up on the CFO's desk. Right. That means if we don't do this, we can't compete with our rivals and we fail. Right? That's why you installed any of this. It's why you bought fax machines. It's why you put up a website. It's why you got email. Like, that's why. Yeah. You know what you haven't proven, Microsoft, at all?
Yeah,
a real return on investment for enterprises. That's because the moment you do, all hell breaks loose, right?
I mean, the Better Business Bureau pointed out a great report that cites up to 75% productivity gains. So I don't know where you're coming from.
I don't know what the concern is, but PCs didn't sell until VisiCalc showed up, right? Yep. Like once the return is apparent, they will all switch. You have failed to produce the return.
I'm not saying it's not deserved or is deserved. I actually don't know, but it's fascinating to me that OpenAI ChatGPT has gotten such buy-in from the world. Like
because it's the brand. It's Xerox, right? It's Kleenex.
That's what I mean. There's something very successful about it that may or may not be tied to its efficacy compared to, say, Copilot or something else. Like,
because you're selling it to consumers as a known brand for a low enough price that they're doing it just in case.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's just it's a weird problem for Microsoft. By the way, in both Xbox and AI, actually, and I've made the argument, and I guess I still will, that they can still win by losing in the sense that as long as people are using Azure, like imagine if Sony was using Azure and their service took off and Microsoft's didn't. It'd be like, well, we're making money there. It's still okay. And if OpenAI / whoever else is building AI services that run on top of Azure, Microsoft is still winning to some degree. But this is the thing, like they were always a distant number 2 in cloud to AWS. They've closed that gap, but they're still number 2, right? Much bigger than Google, but also smaller, I guess, than Amazon by some measure, right? I mean, there are certain ways you can look at this business where it's, it makes maybe more money, but whatever, it's wherever it is. And it would be interesting if their push for growth for the future was AI based fails, and what they have to fall back on is the thing they already did. Like if it just becomes infrastructure, it's just Azure. And that is a potential outcome. I mean, in the same way that, Apple will have Apple Intelligence on their devices. Some people will use it. Some people won't care, but a lot of people will use OpenAI.
Yeah.
Probably going to be the case on Windows. It might be the case in Office or whatever. I mean, it's kind of a weird problem.
Yeah, no. And Microsoft is in that usual issue space. There's a downside to owning an enterprise.
Right. Which is part of that Steve Ballmer interview I mentioned last week. That's 3 hours long that I still recommend strongly that people watch. The other part of this that's interesting about their relationship is just that OpenAI always comes up with these advanced services. Like, we're going to do video now. We're going to do this. We're going to have a notebook. We're going to have, whatever. And then Microsoft will be like, and we're going to give it away for free. They'll do some little free version of it, right? It could
Google's
be part of
doing that too, though. I mean,
but OpenAI will charge for it, and then Microsoft will give it away for free.
These other companies have other revenue streams, Google and Microsoft. OpenAI, that's how they make a living.
Well, and this is also where you get back to your whole comment about antitrust.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. 100%. Although
these guys are undermining our business models repeatedly because we're beating them in the market.
You could make a list of all the features that OpenAI has added to ChatGPT over the past 6 months or a year, or whatever it is. And in each case, in many cases at least, in the beginning, they often only go to that very expensive now $200 a month thing. And then sometimes also the $20 a month paid thing. And then eventually they also make it free. Usually, right? I bet all the major features of this service are free with limits. At some point that happens. So they do it too, but Microsoft seems to kind of undercut that a little bit. I feel like it's a weird, we're partners, but we're competitors kind of situation. And we're going to try to gain a leg up and it's always random. It's like you can use OpenAI's image editing or image creation, or video creation, whatever it is, but only on mobile, in the Bing app that nobody wants to use, or they'll add it to Bing search or Copilot search or whatever the hell it's called, like whatever, like they'll do stuff like that. And it's like,
yeah, just because you're giving away for free doesn't mean the group isn't paying the Azure bill that they're responsible for. Right? Yeah. So it's maybe free on the customer side. But they're also looking for a unit to put those operating costs against.
Oh yeah, of course. But they can afford to do that for the reason Leo said, which is they do have these other businesses, so they can kind of
biggest
subsidize
company in the world, largest revenue model. Like it's.
Yeah, they should look at their, whatever their operating margins every quarter and be like, all right, how much do we have to spend on destroying OpenAI? Because this is just all coming off the top, and right now they're doing great in that regard. So,
yet OpenAI is still outgrowing them, outbuilding them, and certainly out mind sharing them in every respect.
Do you guys think if Microsoft had not invested in OpenAI to the degree that they did, not the original 1 billion, but the 11, that
one,
the deal
then
with
2,
the
then 10. Yeah, but yes.
Okay. Would they be where they are today? Would that have happened anyway? Or would we not even be talking about this company?
Probably not, because they needed enough money to get into the situation that created ChatGPT.
So Google was never going to do it because this was going to destroy their business model.
Yeah. And then the tech billionaires that set it up strangled it. They did wasn't supposed to succeed.
Right.
And, Kevin Scott was looking for workloads for Azure. He wasn't necessarily looking for an AI revolution.
Okay. Look at XAI. They're back to the because they've run through a huge amount of money. They're down to their last $5 billion.
And that's what happened with OpenAI too, right? I mean, the billion was nothing.
It's expensive. And so you got to make these partnerships. You got to make these deals because otherwise. But now it's a little.
But look at the deal that Microsoft had. Hey, we're going to invest $1 billion in you, and you're going to pay it all back to us in Azure consumption.
It was a good deal. Yeah.
They should have gone to China. They probably would have gotten a better deal there.
I'm not really familiar how VC works and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it's not unusual for founders to go back to their investors and say, hey, can we reduce
I think that's very common. Yep, 100%. Yep,
yeah.
I think that's very common.
We'd like.
It's not usually done to this scale, though. That's the thing. The thing about OpenAI that's different is I think in the history of startups, or actually, no, it's the history of independent companies. They are the third biggest in history.
It's amazing.
They're astronomically big.
They've raised
with a big old asterisk because it's not a proper business model they're operating under still.
Yeah, they do make money.
Under this,
Well, they have revenue. I'm sorry, they don't make money. They have revenue. A lot.
Yeah, I was going to say they're getting money. However you want to term it. I mean,
we don't know if they're profitable or not because they don't need to tell us.
It's opaque.
Right.
Yeah. And how would you count it anyway? What we do know is they're burning through enough Azure that Microsoft's not willing to burn through more.
Right.
But that's strangling.
It's been a problem. It's been a problem for other parts of the company. There are parts of the company that do generate money, like Microsoft 365. There are parts of the company that are kind of on the edge, and we really need this to succeed because if it doesn't, we need to do something else with it, like Xbox and the Game Pass and streaming stuff. And there's no doubt that the OpenAI infrastructure needs were hurting both of those businesses.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
And OpenAI's gone to Oracle and others. I mean, they're
Yeah. I don't know how much of that stuff's actually up or still just.
What is like OpenAI? I mean, going to Oracle is like leaving your wife and going back to your junior high school girlfriend. Who, like, what are you doing? Like, it's just gross.
Sometimes it's good. Sometimes
at some point you just need you need an alternative. Like they needed an alternative. That's what right now.
That's what
they jumped onto the first project that would take them.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Oracle's a big player in this Stargate thing. So, that's That's an open.
Yeah, but Stargate is still a project. It's not actually a revenue.
I was going to say, what is it? Yeah, what does it mean? Like they're a big, a big player in like Space Army. It's like, okay. I mean, win a war first, then we can talk. I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of this stuff. But these guys are going to clash. There's no doubt. And I feel like
they're headed right at it. And like I said, this is a game of chicken being played here. They've got you've just outlined 4 different antitrust cases that OpenAI has against Microsoft here. Like there's a bunch. Yep. And
ironically, this will be the one case where they actually save data. Sorry.
But they're, and I think this is all brinksmanship.
Yeah, I do too.
Right.
But the outcome is never going to be we're fine. We love each other. Everything's great. It's always going to be like these two wary.
We're going to kick it down the can to the next time we need to stab each other to death. Yep.
Yeah. It's not a healthy relationship.
No, it can't be.
Yeah. It's really messed up. I'm kind of fascinated by this. I haven't had time to look at this too much, but I strongly recommend everyone who cares about this at all goes and looks at, if you haven't seen it, it's openaifiles.org. Apparently, this site was started by former employees of the company that are starting to publicize the problems they see with this company, and it is rather astonishing. So on the homepage, they have their 4 major areas of concern, which are restructuring, integrity of the CEO, transparency and safety, and conflicts of interest. And if you just kind of scroll through and read the high-level explanation of each of those, it's yikes. It's actually really bad. Now, that said, it's also not surprising in the slightest. I mean, if any cursory look at OpenAI or cursory understanding of what's happened to OpenAI the past 2-3 years, this should not be surprising to anybody.
No, but founded on false means, funded in bizarre ways,
a lot of weird stuff going on here.
It's been a crazy backroom battle and knife fight since the very beginning.
Right.
It's literally in their DNA. It's like it's a group of tech billionaires trying to stab each other.
I don't know.
And every time one of them gets out, a new one comes in.
I'm exaggerating to make a point here. I don't actually know, but I feel like every single person that's left this company of any import has crapped on it as soon as they were gone.
Oh yeah,
and been like, listen, we got to do something about this company. It's really scary. Like it's kind of bizarre. Like you don't see stuff like that at established tech companies.
I think, and I think you raised this point some time ago, Richard, a few episodes ago. There's so much money being paid to these people.
Yeah.
Right.
That the ones who are still there may well just be there because they're waiting to vest
I would argue not at OpenAI. But
I don't know. Did you see the story that Mark Zuckerberg's been going to OpenAI offering literally
bribing basically
$100 million bonus on $100 million a year salary, $100 million a year salary.
Yeah. And supposously no one has taken him up on this offer.
Sam Altman says nobody we care about.
But you know what? Yeah. I mean, knowing
the thing is, it's
Mark Zuckerberg, it's like, I get it, but there might be a cult of Sam Altman thing going on too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people who I think have just fallen in. If you believe that they're
going to get to AGI first, you're not going to leave.
Yeah.
But all of the big shots have Mira Murati, Ilya Sutskever.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're all gone now.
And by the way, those are the people who have all dumped on this company. There are quotes on this site like Mira Murati, I don't feel comfortable about Sam Altman leading us to AGI.
Well, these are the two that led the coup.
Yeah. Well, so now they're like, now you're starting to see why. Like, exactly. So
it's fascinating. It's very much a soap opera.
It's incredible. This is not what you want. Well, I talk sometimes about this is so low level or high level compared to this, but like when I talk about the chaos with Windows and I'm like, this is this modern legacy platform. It shouldn't be like this. But this is like cloud infrastructure and this is people are going to make decisions with this stuff.
Yeah.
And it is scary.
Yeah.
For a company this chaotic to have such a pull.
Like why do you think the enterprise is largely stayed out of this?
Think about absolutely Google was protecting a business model, but Google backed off from doing this years ago. Yep. Yes, because to protect their business model, but also because it was like, oh, this is actually, even for us, this is a little scary. It's like, but OpenAI is like, like they're just running to town with it. Like it's bizarre.
And leveraging the science fiction elements to help people make poor decisions around it.
Well, I mean, of course, that's, it's good marketing.
You want to be part of the future, don't you?
Yeah. Or, I mean, you're going to be part of the future, or you're going to be food for the future. It's up to you. I mean, however you want to do it, it's up to you.
Wow.
It's crazy. All right. But two more things. So Copilot Vision is slightly different in different places, but it's basically something that lets you interact with the things you see, right? And so on your phone, you might use it with your camera to interact or to see what things are out in the world. This has become a kind of a common thing. This used to be like an AR feature, right? That you would point it at a business and it would give you all the Google Maps information about it or whatever. But on a computer, you might use it to interact with whatever you see on screen. It is now generally available in the United States only. It requires a subscription of whatever kind. So Copilot Pro if you're a individual, or Copilot for Microsoft 365, I believe, on that end. If you have the Copilot app on your phone, you can use it for a limited time or limited ways on mobile without a subscription. So you might want to kind of give it a shot. But this is the type of thing which is sort of like Google Lens or even Nokia back in the day before they were part of Microsoft, when they just started coming up with Windows phones, had an AR app on the phone where you could kind of go sideways, and look at stuff out in the world. And it would be like, oh, this is this is whatever the name of this business is, and this is that. Like, it was kind of like this kind of functionality is actually pretty useful. So I'm sure it's based on something that OpenAI did, but
only in the US for now.
But only in the US for now, yeah. Well, GA in the US for now, yeah. I don't know if it's available in other more limited capacities elsewhere or not, but yeah, it is generally available. I did do an episode about Copilot Vision on hands-on Windows recently, I believe. It's in the Copilot app because, of course it is. It's in the Copilot for the web, and they work differently on both places because, of course, they do. Last week, I mentioned Dia, which is the new browser from the makers of Arc. There was not a lot of information about what it was and like how it was working. Since then, in fact, I think it was today or maybe last night, they published a blog post on Substack about what they're doing. And actually, I have to say, this is pretty interesting to me. So I think Leo had it up last week, and it was like, it doesn't have the sidebar stuff. It doesn't do this and that and everything.
Yeah, it
and
was very simple. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all by design. They're going to bring some of that stuff back, but
from Arc?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
They realized that one of the problems for Arc was just the bar of entry. Like, a lot of people rejected it immediately because they were like, what is this thing? It's like and then they would do something that was very common on a browser, like Control-T. And instead of getting a browser tab, they would get like that command bar thing. And they were like, I don't like this, right? Now, power users like you saw this and were like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what I've always wanted. Yeah. So they're going to try to hit a more mainstream market with this, and change the icon from Chrome, for Edge to Chrome, and maybe would fool people. So it does a lot of that kind of stuff where it just looks like a normal browser. And they're hoping that this will get you over the top. I like the term they use. So in Arc, what I would have called the marquee features, there's two things. It's the sidebar and whatever the command bar was called, the overriding of Control-T. They call that a novelty budget. And they were like, we exceeded our novelty budget.
Oh, interesting. What a good way to think of it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So in this one, the novelty budget was spent on kind of power user features that don't get in your face and don't distract you from the normal UI. And so it's the ability to do those things where you ask it questions and can answer across tabs. So if you say something like, I've opened 8 tabs for laptops I should buy, which do you recommend, or something like that, it can interact with all the stuff you're doing. There's like at-based referencing of information like tabs, history, bookmarks, etc. But this, I have to say, like, I don't know what they're using for AI. Like, I don't know what this is based on, but I do like the kind of minimalist UI thing that they're doing. Like, this looks interesting to me. I wish it was on Windows because I don't use the Mac enough for this to be meaningful, but I kind of I'd like to look at this, but anyway, it's out there. If you want to learn more, they have a blog post about it. I downloaded it. I guess, I don't know if it's been updated. Let me just see. I don't think it's been updated since the original release.
It's really just a front end to an AI agent. I don't need that because I have plenty of those. So
yeah,
I'm waiting for them to do something interesting, right?
when ARC came out, for me anyway, it caused a lot of kind of internal questioning about things. And like, I came to the conclusion that like web browsers are super important. They're the most important app we have.
So the Command T
changed.
does the same thing. It opens a new tab now. That's the difference.
Yes.
Yeah. But
the point of it is to like keep it familiar for normal people, but then add this power.
Oh, there is an update. All right, let me get the update. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to change the UI. Like, I don't think that's, the point of it. But there's a point to be made that they lost people with the last thing. And maybe the right approach is to kind of rethink the complexity thing without giving up the power of it if possible, right?
Right.
But they were just upfront about it. Like, they're like, look, they have a list of things. We're going to bring these things back. But we also don't want it to get in the way.
Right.
And we don't want to turn people off immediately. Like that was the thing. Like this was months ago, but the CEO and some of the people at the company were like, we would show this product to our friends and family, of course. And they would be like, I mean, good luck, but I can't use this thing. Like my wife, my sister, my whoever, like, they're like, no, like this is too much. And that was something they heard from a lot of people. Right. So
I admit the first time I used ARC, I also was kind of baffled.
Like, yep, this is ridiculous. Yeah. And that's a big problem.
It was a different way of thinking about browsing, and you guys, reasonably struggled with it.
Well, but we're the kind of hardcore geeks who are willing to spend some energy learning that.
Yeah, and I did, and
reason.
and
then it was worth it.
I saw the point,
Yeah.
And they also, there was a thing they sort of argued that the internet was the computer, and that this thing was the front end to that computer, and that the point of it was, look, you're doing almost everything in the browser anyway. Like, make it work well for that thing. Make it work with the apps you use, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of muscle memory with browsers. Even something as simple as Microsoft overriding Alt Tab in Windows so that it goes to Edge tabs. Or there were, and actually ARC did this, where Control Tab, to me, should go in order of the tabs. But some people wanted to go in order of the tabs you used last. Right. So that it will, you can control tab, and it will just go back and forth between those two tabs. And okay, like this, you can make an argument in either direction, right? So yeah. Anyway, I think they veered too far in the direction of
this. They just stripped everything out. I mean,
yeah. So one of the things they were talking, there's like little subtle things like all over it. Apparently, like even something like the color of the browser page that you're looking at, the web page you're looking at, bleeds up into the tab or something, giving it more of a
see that it's dark there.
That's interesting.
Let me go to my website and see what it
see what it does. Yes, if you can find one like a colored background.
See the background is into the tab.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not saying you don't switch browsers for that, but it's one of the little things. This is the whole list of whatever they did here, but
they were good at making an aesthetic browser. I do not.
Which, by the way, was part of the problem for a Windows user, because these guys they're Mac users. They use SwiftUI to do this. They approach the world from that perspective, which is fine if you're on a Mac. But when you use it on Windows, what you get is this thing that never really, it's like IA writers like this too. Like, you can tell it was designed for a Mac. It's awesome on the Mac. And it's just not quite there in Windows. It's not quite the same. And it probably never will be. I don't know. It took them 6 to 9 months to bring out a Windows version after the first Mac version came out last time. So I hope they don't take that long this time. But
I think they're doing it as Swift. That's part of the problem, right?
I've been meaning to look that up. That may not be true anymore. I know they did ARC and SwiftUI or Swift or whatever. It's possible they're not doing that.
Yeah,
now,
I think they would have switched by now, and it's one of the reasons for the change was that they got a certain level of success.
Scratch. They're using the Windows App SDK, obviously. So it's
built on top of Chromium. So it's written primarily in C++.
Jeez, God.
With a significant use of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for user interface and web technologies. So it sounds like it's
so this is the thing that Microsoft, most browser makers, probably, I can't say all browser makers, but typically the UI in a web browser is made with JavaScript and CSS and all that stuff. And Microsoft is actually moving away from that in Edge for performance reasons, right? And so they've only provided a couple of updates, but they've replaced a bunch of the components, like that browser info box that comes down.
This is interesting.
And I guess it's a lot faster now. So do they
The
say?
desktop app itself is probably a blend of native code, Objective-C or Swift for macOS, and web technologies. So they are still native. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
want some of it to be native on the platform, I guess,
Yeah.
right? I mean, otherwise it would be too slow.
Yeah. And this is what we were talking about earlier. If you don't do native, you kind of lose a slight, subtle bit of, comfort.
And yeah, I don't know if the performance really matters that much to most people. It's
more
it's the
about how
feature
it
set.
Depends on what it
feels.
is.
Fit
Yeah.
and finish, kind of.
But yeah, this was the problem with Java, right? It's like it looks like an app, sort of. It does technically run everywhere, but wasn't perfect.
The only people who care about cross-platform are the developers. Customers just wanted to run on their thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't care. Look, if something makes the developer's life easier, and that may result in a better product because they're not stuck on platform specific issues. That's
I remember
great.
I had a great conversation with the guys building the United app because they were doing native iOS and Android, and their big problem was synchronizing deployment of versions.
Right.
Because a feature would come out on the Apple one first, and the Android people would lose their minds.
You should tell them about Duolingo because they don't care about that. So I go back and forth between iOS and Android on Duolingo. Let me tell you something. These apps are completely different. And there was a feature I had when I was using the iPhone for a big chunk of last year. My wife's on Android. And I was saying, hey, this thing. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah. Like I showed her. She's like, yeah, I don't have that. And she did get it, but it took I think 7 months or something. It was a long time. They're not aligned at all. They don't even pretend they're aligned.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. I don't.
Well, it's just can you afford two different teams doing native development? At least two.
Right.
Maybe three.
Yeah.
four.
It's nice if you can have one team doing one code base, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's the challenge.
It is a challenge.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess at this point I should just say, hey everybody, how you doing?
Feeling pretty
you having
good.
Fun? You enjoying the show?
Yeah.
Guess what? The Xbox segment's just around the corner,
And it's a beast.
But I just want to say hi. You're watching.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
You're watching what show? Should I show the thing that we've been working on in the behind the scenes?
Now's the time. You got it right.
Okay, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. Okay, I'm just saying it's not the end. It's
The
just the beginning.
disconnected arms are a little weird.
Yes.
Well, they're gonna emerge. They're gonna emerge.
It's like you've stuck your hand into a deliver baby.
That's all, folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
It really is all. That's it.
Well, this is what
did
AI
you-
is about, right?
What did you do this with?
I didn't do it with anything. Pretty Fly for Assist guy did it, and it's got the ChatGPT logo on it. So I'm guessing ChatGPT.
We know what tools were used. Yeah.
And then I used iMovie to freeze frame it a few times.
It says
that-
Sora. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he says Sora. Oh, yeah. That's a ChatGPT. Yeah.
All right. Well, now turn it into
Joint.
like a Tyrannosaurus Rex comes from the background, grabs Leo, and shakes him like a rag doll. You gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Onwards to the Xbox segment, my friends.
Yeah. So charitably, I can't say this has been a great year for Xbox. There are more layoffs coming. I think I've alluded to this or you mentioned it outright. I've heard now this has been pushed back to July because of end of year stuff plus timing around the big show they had a week ago.
That must be terrible for the employees.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him this more demoralized since 2011.
Yep. So Microsoft had the big Xbox game showcase. They revealed these Xbox Ally, handheld gaming handhelds. We have to call them that. Triggering a bunch of speculation. There's been a lot of talk from Phil Spencer, especially, and then rumors, and then leaks, right, that give us various ideas about where things are going. And my conclusion from all this coming into last week was, I think that the next generation platform, Xbox platform, is going to be based on Windows. It's going to be a PC. It's going to run this lighter version of Windows with the Xbox app front end. It's going to integrate with all your stores. And for this to make sense, there's going to have to be some degree of backwards compatibility with your Xbox apps, meaning your console games, rather, I should say. And I don't know how that works. I don't know if there are licensing issues there, but here's what I do know. Previous 2 console gens were AMD based. They're basically PC platforms. So this might not be that difficult. And by doing this, Microsoft can offload the unprofitable part of this business to partners who maybe can be more successful with it. It can scale the platform better. The big strength of the PC, obviously, is you can get a low-end PC and have one experience, but you graphic card, RAM, all the stuff, and awesome, 4K ray tracing, et cetera, et cetera. I've had people complain to me that, consoles are a thing and PCs are a thing and never the twain shall meet. But that's not really paying attention to the way that consoles have evolved over the years. You don't release a console, do nothing to it, and then wait 7 or 8 years and release a new one. Go back to the Xbox 360, which launched with 720p video support, and then 1080i, and then 1080p, and Xbox One, which went to the S and then to the X with 4K, sort of 4K, but improved graphics over the time. Not just cost reductions, not just nicer designs, but also improved specs. And then we move forward to Xbox Series X and S, and they released 2 at the same time, different tiers, right? That's very much like a PC, by the way. It's a simplified form of that model. Yeah. It's all in-house. Microsoft still controls the platform, et cetera, but things are shifting, right? Sony's done similar things with their PlayStation, they have Pro models, et cetera. So to me, Microsoft's big strength in gaming from a platform perspective is Windows. And I've experienced this. I stopped using the Xbox console. I've been playing games on PCs. It's a lot better. Not perfect. I may or may not have mentioned this, but I think I told this story. I was on, phone rang, playing a game over here on this console or this laptop, doing work on this laptop. The phone icon, the phone notification thing comes up on both computers over the game, by the way, lowering the volume of this should never happen when you're playing a game, right? Now, the Xbox platform Microsoft's making for these handhelds, and apparently now, as we'll discuss for everything, would never allow that. That's the part of that platform is you don't have that stuff. It's not doing all those background things. It's Windows, but it's been stripped of all the UI, all the background stuff. You're just playing the game. So yesterday, out of the blue, Microsoft released a 1-minute video, which should have no content whatsoever. Sarah Bond announcing a partnership with AMD for next-gen silicon over multiple years, multiple device types. But they've been partnering with AMD for years. This is really an expansion of that. Yeah. It's not really new, but anyway. So this to me verifies everything I just said, which was mostly speculation, but based on information, right? This thing is for, this partnership is about next-gen hardware, meaning silicon that AMD and Microsoft will co-engineer specifically for this new Xbox. Multi-year, like I said, for consoles and gaming handhelds. Very explicitly, Microsoft making those things, right? Or Microsoft being the platform maker anyway. She mentions compatibility with existing game libraries. I pointed that one out before. This is one you have to be a little bit careful with because Microsoft has the best backward compatibility story in the industry on consoles. That took a lot of work. And so where we are today is every game that can be brought forward from OG Xbox has been. We're done with that. The Xbox 360 titles, that was a different platform. Remember, this is PowerPC. Yeah. Totally different. So
custom silicon.
Yeah, Microsoft has had to emulate that stuff to get it to work. But we are also at the point where every game that could come out of the 360 era has been brought forward. We're done. So what we have left is Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. And I'm going to make the claim that I think these are the same console generation. They're both based on AMD. There may be exceptions to this, but by and large, if you create a game that works on Xbox One, it works on Series X and S. Most new games, even to today, not all, but especially for the last several years, would come out on both. Like it would be Xbox One, X, and S. This to me is part of the same thing. And as we move forward now with AMD again, that's going to help that compatibility story. So if you're an Xbox person, meaning you have a console, you bought games, you may play some games on PC too, whatever, but console, the stuff that you bought, hopefully digitally, but whatever, Xbox One or newer, pretty much guaranteed to run. Like that's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
The old stuff, it's going to be what we have today, I think, to some degree. Like the Xbox 360 / Power PC stuff, whatever's there is there. Hopefully most of it comes forward. I don't know if there are licensing issues in there, but
it's possible.
Whatever.
Yeah, you never know how that stuff gets made.
That's part of it. Then. But then they talk about compatibility with existing game libraries very explicitly. Xbox, not Windows, right?
Right.
They also talk about multiple stores. This is something very common and just typical to the PC space. This is not a thing on consoles, right? Consoles are walled gardens, including Xbox. That doesn't mean it couldn't change, but I think the way it changes is you make the console a PC. And then you have Steam, you have Epic Games, you have whatever other game libraries. There were leaked screenshots showing that being the case. Like Microsoft is working on that. But it's this quote that really kind of puts it over the top. She said that Xbox was working closely with the Windows team to ensure that Windows is the #1 platform for games. That's interesting. You're talking about Xbox. Why would you be making Windows the #1 games platform? Because Windows is the games platform. It is the platform that will be.
Yeah, it's always been the
Xbox.
same kernel.
Yeah. So this is 1 minute.
The question mark here, Paul, is ARM versus AMD.
Yes, 100%. So to addressing that, there's nothing in this to suggest that the ARM is part of this.
Yeah.
But I would also say there's nothing in this to suggest that it is not.
Well, that it couldn't be in the future. And
that's
they're
right.
basically building a model for third-party construction of devices.
Part of this is timing. We've talked about this. ARM just kind of isn't there in the PC
Not
space
quite
yet, but NVIDIA's coming with their graphics. MediaTek, AMD's known to be working on ARM chips. AMD, I mean, we'll see. Qualcomm will release a 2nd-gen Elite chip, and it will have better graphics. That's going to be one of the big focuses for this generation. So it may just be a matter of timing. So for right now, we have third-party partner Asus. We'll have others next year. We'll have Xbox probably next year doing these portable devices, which will be x64 almost certainly. But when you think about the future, where ARM makes the most sense is portable. So if these gaming handhelds are a big deal and are persistent and work well, sell well, I should say, it would actually make sense assuming, I should say, all of the platform improvements have occurred and that one of the requirements to you as a developer for targeting this new Xbox platform, that's really Windows, to get it into the store and get it on these devices that are really PCs, is it has to run on ARM too. That's a checkbox and a compiler thing. I mean, you want to test it and all that stuff, but I mean, it's not that difficult. It's not, you're not bridging this platform bridge has already occurred. Like it's not a brand new thing, not really. So that's still a possibility to me. And I think it does make most sense for portable. Now, in the home, in the living room, whatever it is, whatever. I mean,
you can debate. Yeah. As long as you got fixed power, you don't really care.
It doesn't. Yeah. But you want the compatibility. You want the performance to hit a certain level.
The heat's not coming from the CPU. It's coming from the GPU.
Yep. So the one thing we haven't seen on an ARM SoC yet is discrete graphics. And I feel like this conversation will be very different a year from now. Not necessarily because of this, but NVIDIA is going to enter this market. We're going to see. Like something's going to happen in this space. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that impacts.
There's nothing being
Xbox.
said here that impairs that happening.
Right. But I do think it is a matter of timing. I think they've been treading water for maybe too long. It's why Phil Spencer
the
and
biggest
others
argument
have
I would say against ARM, specifically Qualcomm, is chip production. They don't have enough chips to suddenly need 20 million handhelds. They couldn't produce those chips. AMD
this is the other reason, right? So this is another reason why, someone might say, well, if Xbox is unsuccessful selling hardware, why on earth would Lenovo, HP, or whoever the hardware makers might be want to make these things either? But it's because you got to remember, Microsoft doesn't sell a lot of anything when it comes to hardware. So they're the biggest company in the world, but Lenovo is the biggest PC maker in the world. They have 25% of the market. HP's number 2, Dell's number 3. These companies get volume discounts on components and also get first dibs on them. Mm-hmm. And that is something that can help them get to market quicker and cheaper than Microsoft ever could, but also potentially, because there'll be multiple companies, introduce competition, There'll be different, tiers of these devices, certainly. And that will hopefully, we'll see, but will lead to lower prices as well. When Microsoft comes out with an Xbox, it's like, yeah, this is kind of us doing our thing here. It's not, we can't really, there's not a lot of ways to save money unless we just want to make something that's terrible.
Yeah.
Whereas Lenovo could be like, oh, we can get 1 million of these things. Like, no problem. So I'm excited about this. It's tantalizing because it confirms some things, but also because it leaves so much, like there's still so many open questions. So I think they just threw us a little lifeline here. Like, we know it's been quiet. There's probably going to be some bad news, but we're still forging ahead on next gen hardware and explicitly consoles and gaming handhelds. So to me, this is super exciting.
Yeah, no, it's all good news.
Yes.
Woohoo.
Now, given this, this Xbox Ally thing that Microsoft is doing in partnership with Asus is, I think, the first peek we have at what that will look like, right? This is explicitly going to run PC games. It's not going to run Xbox games unless, by the way, something changes. We'll see. But for now, PC games. So Microsoft has a site on their, I think it's the Microsoft developer site, where they are explaining to developers what this platform is and how it differs from PCs, how it might be better, worse, and different, whatever. And here again, you see 2 tiers, right? Better processor in the more expensive one, more RAM, faster RAM too, by the way, more storage, but also Thunderbolt 4 versus just USB on the other one and that kind of thing. So we're doing that tiered thing, which is very PC, but they have all these APIs that I have never even heard of that are all about making Windows gaming more like a console experience, right? Obviously controller support and all that stuff. And then the, not just controller, but all the accessibility interfaces and all that kind of thing. But they have, game saves, offline support, cross-platform, offline, or game save, like game continuation support, et cetera, et cetera. Like this is not all brand new. It didn't just appear yesterday so they could do this system. This has been around for a while, but this is, why it's a little bulky and terrible now. But when I open a laptop to play Call of Duty, but maybe I played on this other laptop last time, it syncs over the cloud and I pick up where I was and I go, right? It actually does work. I think Xbox Play Anywhere is going to be a requirement of this. And the point of that's going to be Xbox, PC are the same. It's easy. It's just going to be, we're going to make it stupid easy. Like every game will be Xbox Play Anywhere because Xbox will be a PC. Yeah. So I feel like it's coming together. But it's Xbox. So, it's like, I wish it would just kind of happen, but I think they're stuck between a rock and a rock, I guess is the way I would say it. But they're trying. Okay.
Yeah, but now we get back to that Blizzard acquisition and that whole, this is about mobile gaming. And we immediately thought phone. And maybe it was, they've always had a vision of building a handheld Xbox device and they were going to need to build out popular titles in that space. And Blizzard had a big chunk of that.
Look, I understand to some degree that nothing can happen instantaneously, but I do find it bizarre how much time has passed. And there has been no movement at all on any Microsoft, or I call it Xbox franchise, Microsoft Game Studios franchises coming to mobile, coming cross-platform, what it will happen over time. Like there'll probably be, the new Gears has been pushed back. Brad made this point this morning. Xbox Showcase, great. But there was nothing Halo, nothing, Gears just to say, it's coming. Well, there's a remaster of the first game, but the new one next year, all the big stuff is next year, which is really interesting because that's when this new thing is going to come out. And what they want for that is to actually have new games, new big games that people actually care about. But I would like to see those things, you're going to remaster Gears or the original Halo, like they're about to do again. Mm-hmm. That should be on iPad. That should be on a phone. It should be, why is this thing not everywhere? It's kind of bizarre.
Now you're rethinking user interfaces too, right?
No, I know, but they've had a lot of experience with that. I mean, that's, game streaming has given them the opportunity to do things like add overlays for touch to what are essentially console games. And that stuff is actually pretty successful. Not for me, because I can't even type on a phone. I'm never going to play a game like that, but you could connect a controller to it and it would work fine. Yeah. It's those, listen, my iPad probably has better graphics on my computer. I mean, it could do it. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, without a doubt. And especially an M-class iPad, like those are extraordinary machines. They can do incredible things.
Yep.
You just got to get devs to actually build for the platform, which they've not been doing.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Again, that's a totally different chipset. That's a different user interface. That's a tough play. And on a device that notoriously you don't pay for stuff on.
Yeah, I mean, so Microsoft can help simplify life for developers in some ways by making Xbox Windows, right? So this is a known quantity. Everyone understands it. Now it's going to work everywhere. There's a couple of requirements. You got to do controller and blah, 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 whatever, but that will be easy. That might free up resources for that kind of thing. But it also gives them a marketing line for those developers who at this point might be like, I don't know if supporting Xbox makes a lot of sense. It seems like you guys aren't doing great over there. But now you can say, well, it's a PC.
Yeah. Which is, again, always been true since the 360.
Yeah. I mean, that I don't know.
360 and PS3 both went to custom silicon and both came out the other side going, that was a mistake.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So interesting. I mean, I don't know anything about that end of it. Like, I don't know what it means what it would be like to try to develop a game on a Sony place. I have no idea. Or even
you write your game on the PC and then you test it on the platform, right? That's the dev cycle.
And Xbox, same deal. I mean, I know the platform is essentially common. It's more of a fixed thing on the console side, but I don't know what that looks like. I've never done it. I've never seen it. So I'm not really sure, but I have to think that this will make it
It's not that far from mobile development, except a little less painful because everything's faster. You're not going out to the cloud if you don't need to, but it is that I am writing on a different machine than I'm running on.
Right. But now it should be very easy. If you're in Visual Studio today and you are doing a cross-platform app, you can run something in an emulator. I mean, Windows would be even easier. It's like, just run this app.
They tend not to emulate. They tend to just push to the device.
Just play it. Yeah, you just play it.
And everyone has one. Like, it's just not that expensive, right? You spent more on the PC than you did on the device anyway. So you're making your changes, then you do a push, then you grab the controller and go for a while, and then you jump back.
That's a fun little process.
Go back. Yeah, but it's, try phone development. It's like stabbing yourself in the eye, except it takes longer and hurts more.
Yep. Okay. Let me blow through the rest of this so we can get to the back of the book stuff. Game Pass, it's past the middle of the month. We get a bunch of stuff. Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 remastered. Call of Duty World War II, which actually I really liked
a good version. Yeah.
Fun. Rise of the Tomb Raider, classic. That one, I don't want to say I've almost finished it, but I played it a lot, and it's something that appears everywhere. Like, it's one of those games, like it's on everything. It's on the Mac. It's, it's everywhere. But it's a good one. Crash Bandicoot 4. So there's a bunch of stuff.
There's a lot of Blizzard titles here, man. Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
Finally.
Slowly. Yeah.
It's been more than a year and a half later. And here we are, a bunch of Warcrafts. Like, this is good news.
Yeah. It's fine.
Everything's fine.
Yep. If you're a Minecraft fan, definitely check out the updates that were just released. There's the Vibrant Visuals update we talked about probably back in March.
Was that out now? Oh,
this is that big graphical update. You have to have the Bedrock edition. Xbox Series X and S 1 to the previous conversation. PlayStation 4 and 5, Android, iOS, and PC. There's a new, they call it a drop, but I guess I would call it DLC called Chase the Skies. The big thing here, there's a bunch of new things, but the big one is there's a new, what are they calling it? It's like a floating carpet, a flying mount. So you can fly over the world. And, that opens up.
Well, you could always do that, but now you've got something.
But now there's
a formal.
there's a thing you can actually ride. So it's kind of fun. And this one's bizarre to me, but this game has now been optimized for Xbox Series and X and S. It's like, guys, are you kidding me? So I guess it was just Xbox One before and it just worked fine. But now it's actually optimized newer Xbox. And this is something I just looked at too. I loaded Steam on my Mac to see, because I have this big game library on there. So if I don't remove the number, but if I have like 40 games for the PC, I think I have 4 for the Mac. Yeah. It's not good.
It's depressing.
But it's not also, I guess Steam itself, the app is not native on Apple Silicon. It will be. It's in beta now.
Kind of has to be, because they're phasing out.
Oh, that's right. They're going to, that's right. Yeah, they're going to phase it. That's true. They're going to phase out Rosetta too. So, that's happening. It's not going to improve the game compatibility thing. That's kind of a bigger issue.
Yeah, that's just the front end. It's not the game.
Yeah, that would seems to me like Apple would have to invest in this because obviously Steam, Valve, which makes Steam, has their big investment in Steam Deck and Linux, and they've done a lot of work to get their game library on Linux, right?
That made a lot of games available on Linux.
They did a really good job with that. So something like that would have to happen on the Mac for that to start making sense. I mean, the Mac probably, I don't really know, but I think the Apple Silicon stuff has really good graphics.
They really want game developers. They're pushing.
But nobody seems to.
Nobody's interested. They don't.
I mean, if you want a new Markdown editor, it's the way to, it's the way to go. But other than that,
it's great for Markdown.
Yeah, it's great for that. If you have Markdown calendar, oh yeah, we got 38 of those. Do you have Halo? No, there's no Halo.
No.
Yeah, not an Apple Silicon. Sorry.
No. Okay, we're going to pause just briefly and then get to the tips and the apps and the run as, and of course the brown liquor. But I do want to put in a little plug for Club Twit. We kind of it feels like the membership isn't growing as much as I would really like to see it grow. We've kind of stalled at a very good number, 12,000 plus or minus members, which is fantastic. I mean, that's as big as probably anybody. But I know there are more of you who are not yet members of the club, and I don't know what I can do to encourage you to join. I'd really like to get you in. Here's the story. About 4 years ago, we created Club Twit because this was in the midst of COVID. The advertising was dropping off, and we kind of freaked out, to be honest, and said, we gotta supplement that missing revenue somehow, or we're going to have to cut back. We weren't able to do enough. As you know, we closed the studio. We had to cancel shows. We let go of some of our most beloved employees. It was a tough time for us, but the club came through, and we got it to the point now we're stable. Club revenues are about 25% of our operating budget. So that's good. I mean, without that, we'd have to cut another 25%. It's $10 a month. We did raise the price. It is $120 a year. Of course, if you're a member, don't quit because you can keep your legacy price for as long as you stay a member. So that's the good news. I think $10 is pretty fair. Here's what you get. Ad-free versions of all the shows. I've always been one of those people who hates it when they charge you money and then still show you ads. That's no good. We don't do that to you. What we do is we give you some extra value. No ads, but access to the Club Twit Discord featuring me in a jumpsuit. No, that's just a joke. But we do a lot of events this evening. For instance, 6 o'clock, Micah's going to do his crafting corner, a really nice chill space. He does Lego. I will go in there maybe if I get a chance and do some vibe coding. There's knitting, there's painting, there's baking. 6 p.m. Pacific tonight. I do want to mention we're going to do a chat room special for club members on June 25th with Home Theater Geeks. Scott loves talking to the chat room, and so he'll be talking to the Discord. Get in there as a club member, and you can talk with him, ask your questions right after Intelligent Machines. It's a week from tomorrow. That'll be really cool. That'll be really fun. We are putting together, I think, a very interesting doubleheader on the 27th. Good friend of mine, long time, one of my best friends for years, like 40 years, Norman Maslov, has a YouTube channel called Mazzy's Music. It's all about vinyl. But we also interviewed a couple of weeks ago a guy on Intelligent Machines who wrote a book all about the advent of digital music and MP3s. So we're going to get them together, talk about the future of music, both vinyl and digital. That'll be starting at noon on June 27th, noon Pacific, and we'll go for a couple of hours. That should be really interesting. Friday, July 11th, we're not going to do it on the 4th of July, so it'll be the second Friday of July for our AI users group. More vibe coding. Last time we did a bunch of vibe coding and created a Twit, talked about creating a Twit app. Several people have done it. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. I also would like to do image design. Hands on Tech has its monthly recording. Our photo time is back in July. The assignment is quirky. So we have this is all special programming we do in the club just for you. We do make it available a month after we do it in the club. So you get club access for the first month. And boy, we sure would like you to come on in. Do we have a free trial, Patrick? Is that true? Are you just pulling my leg? I don't know. I'll tell you what, here's how you find out. Twit.tv/clubtwit. go to that webpage. All the details are there. There are family plans. There are business plans. There's a yearly plan as well. It makes a huge difference to us in terms of our ability to do what we do. We need the club. Yeah, there is a 14-day free trial. Well, that's cool. For new members only. If you haven't yet joined the club, you're not sure if it's worth it, take advantage of the 2-week free trial. twit.tv/club twit. That's awesome. Thank you, Patrick, for filling me in on that. I must have missed that meeting, or I was asleep. Anyway, back to the show we go. It's time for the back of the book. Paul Thurrott, kick things off for us.
Yes. Where are we?
We are here. Where are you?
Who am I? You know JFK. Oh, yeah. So I don't know what I'm talking about. So one of the things I've been railing about for the past 2 years almost is Microsoft auto-enabling folder backup from OneDrive on me. And I've always hated this. It's when it happens, I reverse it, and then I have to go to those couple of folders and delete the stupid shortcuts it creates and delete the crap it put up in OneDrive. And it's just an irritant. But since I've been home from Mexico, I've gotten in several review laptops. And I had this day where the first time it was 3 laptops all at the same time, just auto-enabled folder backup. And so I started to like, oh, here I go. And then there were 4 more since then. And I was like, you know what?
This is such a Paul problem.
I'm going to give this. I'm going to explain why maybe it isn't. So I'm like, I'm just going to live with this. I'm going to deal with it. I'm just going to like, what could go wrong? Like, well, I sometimes forget, like, I know it irritates me on some level, but is there some, it's syncing desktop documents and pictures to OneDrive. Is this a problem? Like,
right.
One of the things I did about 1.5 years ago was I moved all of my content out of those folders in OneDrive. I created a root level Paul folder, created a folder structure under there, put it all in there. So at least it's not going to commingle with my stuff as it would for most normal people. So I already did that. And I don't want stuff syncing necessarily, but okay, but that's just whatever. And what I discovered was that actually what Microsoft is doing is wrong, like on so many levels. It's even worse than I thought. So there's a whole discussion. This is in the article. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but like what is your desktop folder and what is its namespace name, fully qualified path? There's 4 versions of it when it does this, 4 different views, 4 different, that's insane. But there are things like, there are badly written apps. The Adobe apps do this. Call of Duty does this, by the way, that write synchronization data and probably configuration data of whatever kind to your documents folder for some reason. So like when I go on this computer, I don't think this one is synced yet. Yeah, it's brand new. There's a whole list of stuff that's syncing to every single computer. And syncing actually introduces a variable that could be unreliable. So in the case of Call of Duty, I mentioned this thing where I open the lid and I start playing and it synced from over there. That's in a best case scenario. A lot of times I actually get sync errors, and it's because of this activity where it's trying to sync through OneDrive, even though it's not designed to do that. And it's like a Microsoft app. It's like, what are you doing? So there are things like syncing, like pictures is actually kind of problematic. So I take a lot of screenshots. This is a Paul problem. But if you take a screenshot in Windows, it has whatever file name, screenshot 01, screenshot 02. But if I go to another computer and I take a screenshot there, if it's syncing that folder, it looks at whatever the last screenshot is and it makes it 4, 5, 6. And then I go back to this computer and then it's 7, 8, 9. This one's in dark mode. That's one in light mode. These ones are configured. Whatever they're just like in, you know what I mean? They're just all over the place. Like they have nothing to do with each other. I've had to delete the screenshots from this folder 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 times now. There's a bunch of other stuff, but this is just really bad behavior. Aside from the obvious, they should ask. And then when you say no, they should respect your choice. Like there are things Microsoft could do to make this elegant and make sense for everyone. And they're just lazy. And I don't like it on my own level, but I also, now that I've been using it, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. This is what I was doing before was right. This is bad. And I'm a power user maybe, but I have a very explicit configuration. I would like Windows to just respect it. Understand that I am backing everything up. Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's none of your business.
I came back from build. One of the things I did, this is a month ago, right? I went to the build website after the fact and I downloaded, I don't remember the number, 37 videos so I could watch the session videos, which I've been doing over time. Because of the way I work, I put that folder on my desktop, which then synced to every single one of my computers. And I review a lot of laptops. And so some
How
number
much
of days
bandwidth just got wasted?
Some number, right. It's not like they're syncing machine to machine. They're going up and down and, like whatever. So some number of days later, I was doing something on some computer, brought it up, installing apps, what I was doing. And that folder appeared on my desktop and I was like, oh, like that's not good. So look, don't give in to big tech. That's all I'm saying. Just don't do it. The other one, this is going to sound like it's not Windows related, but I'm going to bring it home. Prime Day is coming up in July, early July. It's going to be 4 days long this month. Tied to this, Prime Gaming, which we have talked about, is every month gives away games for free. And this month they're doing it again, and it's actually fairly impressive. So if you haven't done this, if you have Prime, go to gaming.amazon.com, sign in. The stuff that I see here now, right on the top, that you can get for free. Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered. I think 4 through 6 were also in there at one point. Saints Row 2, Star Wars Rebellion. I'm not seeing a lot of this because I've already redeemed a lot of these games. Right. What's interesting about this is we talked about, these are Windows games, right? So they could come from, depending on the game, Xbox/Microsoft Store, goodoldgames.com, GOG.com, Epic Games Store, and possibly, and Prime too, actually from Amazon. So like if I click on Tomb Raider and I say like get game and I go through this, I get a code and this one goes to Good Old Games. So I have to sign in there and I add it to my library. But this is the benefit of the PC. This is the thing we were talking about earlier, which is why this new Xbox platform is going to be so great, because there are companies like Epic Games that gives away a couple of games a month, I think, which is fantastic. But Amazon gives away a lot of games, like a lot of games. If you have not done this or haven't done it recently, go do this now. It's impressive. And because of this Prime Day thing, they're having a big promotion. So this is absolutely worth doing. And then on the app pick side, two things real quick. Again, not going to sound like Windows, but hold on, it is. Camtasia makes two really famous products. They make more than two, but the two that everyone knows about are Camtasia and Snagit. Snagit is a screenshot utility that we always used to use back in the day when we were making books that were printed on paper as we used to do things. But there are free tools now, and a lot of people use other things. But Camtasia is a video creation and editing suite that's especially tuned to doing things like presentations and screen captures and that kind of thing. These products are really good, but they're also kind of expensive. And so now there's a new version of Camtasia for the web called Camtasia Online, which is optimized for 1080p screen recordings on a computer. Now, it's limited to 5 minutes, but the point of that is it's for that thing like you're trying to demonstrate something very specific, and you can just take that file. There's no watermark or anything. You can put it in your editor. You can make multiple versions, whatever. If for some reason this isn't good enough, Clipchamp is built into Windows. That does, I think it's 30 minutes on screen recording. I have to look that one up. Or something like OBS Studio, which is what I use for hands on Windows, but very technical and kind of difficult to use. Like this is kind of a cool thing, and it's kind of ties into their desktop product. So if you do have the desktop version of Camtasia, they integrate together and you can do further things there. But there's a lot of editing tools and all kinds of capabilities there. Also, on the periphery of the PC space, Adobe released a mobile or two mobile versions of their Firefly app, Firefly being their in-house AI stuff. For Android and iPhone. So the idea here is that you are a creator who is inspired on the go. Like you're out in the world and you're like, oh, I want to make this thing. I want to make a generative AI image or a video. You can do it on your phone. And then when you get back to your house or wherever, or your laptop, you open up whatever product you're using from Adobe. It could be Firefly, literally, or Photoshop or Premiere Pro, whatever it might be. And then that video or image is available in your library and you can work with it further from there. You could use it on your phone too. I mean, I know there are people or creators who do videos and edit videos and post videos and do all that stuff right from their phone. God bless you. My eyes are not good enough for that, but you could use it in that regard. But if you haven't used Firefly You do technically need a subscription. I think you get some kind of limited use if you don't pay for whatever subscriptions. Firefly subscription,
Creative Cloud,
the Creative Cloud subscriptions as well. So if you just get like Photoshop subscription, you would get it as part of that too. But the quality of the images,
Is it good?
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're indemnified when you use this.
Right.
These are known to be not infringing on anything. And if
Right.
anyone were to complain, Adobe will have your back. So if you're worried about getting sued because someone sees an image and you're like, oh, it looks a lot like my product, Adobe's going to be like, nope, it does not. And this is all, they have an amazing library of content as well. So you can speak into it with a prompt. You can give it a starter image. There's different ways to do it. But I asked it, so the image I used at the top of the page is me describing the Windows XP wallpaper. And at least one of those images is nicer than that photo that came in Windows XP.
That's hysterical.
It's beautiful.
Ugh.
I used it later. I made a version of it with Firefly originally, and then I put it into the, I think it might have been Paint actually, Paint or Photos, but I used it. It has styles where you can say, make it like a Renaissance watercolor or whatever. And I'm using that as my wallpaper now on all my computers.
Oh,
It's
nice.
gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
They're so
Really nice.
I mean, they had to do this because there's so many other companies doing
I mean,
this.
this is their space, right? Like,
Yeah, this is
they're
their
like, we
space.
have to get this right. And look, Adobe's expensive. I do get that, but they're also trusted and used broadly in this space.
It's also
And
one of those
with the
things where you're
cheapest-
already spending the money. You bought Photoshop through Creative Cloud or Illustrator,
Yep.
whichever one you use, and now the suite's just getting better.
yeah, this is the rationale for a Copilot in Microsoft 365. It's the, although they charge for that. But yeah, if you're paying for this stuff, yeah, of course you want this, It's
See if
amazing.
I have a subscription. It's so easy to have one.
I
and forget.
don't know how it did it, but I when you sign into an Adobe app, like first you go to the site, you have to sign in. It's tedious. You download it, you start installing it. It's tedious. You have to sign in again. It's 2FA, blah, blah, blah. You run the app, you have to do it again. It's the most tedious thing in the world. I installed this thing on my phone and it never asked me for my credentials. And I was like, that's
nice.
impossible. It's Adobe.
It knew.
But I was signed in and I'm like, I don't know how I was signed in. I actually, to this moment, do not know. I would think it was my Android phone. Yeah, I don't know how it did it. I was like, how do you know? Usually they're so weird about it. Like I was signed into my account. So it did work. It worked fine.
It's so funny. I've canceled and re-signed up so many times with Adobe.
Yeah,
Because I just resent.
Some time ago I signed up for this. They've gotten in trouble for this, although it's never been rectified. You sign up for some tier of the Creative Cloud.
Oh yeah, this is so.
It's
frustrating.
X number of dollars per month. And you're like, you know what? I'm not really getting the value out of this I wanted. And you go back and they're like, oh no, you can leave. You owe
But
$800 and whatever dollars for the rest of the year that you agreed to pay. And you're like, whoa, what are you talking about? I come and go from Netflix all the time. And they're like, no, you have to pay for it. But
that's not how it works.
you get through the year, once you do that, then you can come and go. So you have to give them that. You have to give them the year.
Give them that year.
But once you do that, you can move tiers and you can just cancel it. It's fine. But you got to
Only after they've extracted their pound of flesh.
Yeah, exactly.
I have so many different image generators, and I've used so many.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking at what's new and what's different and what's better, right?
Exactly, because it's and it changes over time. The
I do
Adobe
like
one's
that they
very
haven't
good.
stolen any of the art.
I should say too. Sorry to interrupt. When you use Adobe, when you use Adobe, they actually the two top level choices for images are, I don't know, image or whatever, but then the other one's photorealistic, and the photorealistic ones are like yikes, like they're actually really really good.
Yeah. Wow. You get 10. I have 10 of 10 monthly complimentary generations of generative AI.
Okay, there you go. So you can actually use it. Yeah, that's good. That's probably enough for most people, right? It's certainly enough to figure out if you want to use it. Like it's good.
Yeah. All right, Richard, you are on, my friend.
Another show from Build, one of many I picked up while I was there with my friend Bob Ward. So luxurious to be in person. I think we just enjoyed chilling and talking. Of course, he is one of the great SQL guys. He's been in that team for forever, 20-something plus years, since the early days of SQL Server. And there's a new version of SQL Server that went into preview during Build, SQL Server 2025. And of course, if you're wondering when the ship date is, we know the pattern for Microsoft. They're pretty consistent. It'll ship in what they quote unquote ignite timeframe, which would be November. But how does a pay for database still live in this day and age of lots of free data storage all over the place? And then they've just kept adding features. This is their enterprise AI version. So it's got direct support for vector data types. If you want to do RAG and store it directly into your SQL database, it's ready for that. It's got the ability to do REST API calls from within stored procedures out to various different providers, including OpenAI and others. So lots of power there. It's a great new version without a doubt, and new icon too. That's important to you.
It is. Thank you.
So Bob's been the credible source or talking about SQL Server. He's written all the books, and he's the guy. So it's,
Nice.
It's all good. Great to chat with him, and again, we had the luxury of being in person, so I had a good time with that.
I am ready for a relaxing, refreshing sherry oak aged beverage.
Now we're talking the original, right? And now, why am I talking about Macallan today? Because normally I got it as a gift. This was my thank you for helping to MC the DevSum conference in Stockholm last week. And I've worked with Ulf and Tibby and those folks for years and years, and they asked me if I would do the thing, and I always say yes. They're generous to me. I'm generous to them. I did not expect to get a bottle of whiskey. I am not unhappy to receive one. Least of all, the 2023 release of the Sherry Oak. Macallan, this is, let's put it on the table because it's important. It's a $400 bottle of whiskey.
Yikes.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's awfully good. Like, I'm just going to have a sip to warm up. Macallan, Macallan is a legend. They literally call it the cognac of whiskeys. This is the Rolls Royce of whiskeys. They've been around. It's cultish. It's weird. It's like the definitive Speyside. When people talk about Speyside whiskeys, they're probably talking about Macallan. And for a lot of folks, it may not be your first whiskey ever, but the first time you spent too much money on a whiskey, it was probably Macallan. Now, there has been a farm in that location for millennia. When the big new distillery was being built there on beside the existing distillery, they did a bunch of archaeological extractions and found barley growing going back to the Mesolithic period, right? Evidence of Stone Age constructions, Bronze Age constructions, Iron Age constructions. This has been a great area for growing food, literally for millennia. So when they talk about Macallan starting in 1824, it's a lie. That's just Alexander Reed, who had leased the land in 1819. But there was already a barley farm there. He was leasing a working farm. There's plenty of evidence to show there was whiskey being made, the excess barley produced in that area, back to the 1400s, right? As early as whiskey has existed. The original name of the distillery was the Eccles Distillery, named after Esther Eccles, which is a house that was built there, again, in the 1400s. The actual name Macallan Estate is from 1543. And if you ever do the tour of the Macallan, and I absolutely recommend you do, it's one of the very best. You will get a tour of the Esther Eccles building, which is largely looks the way it was when its last major renovation was done in the 1760s. So this is super duper old school whiskey making kind of place. The name Macallan is a mashup of two Gaelic words, Mag being fertile ground and Allan being local stream, unless you believe some of the other stories, which is related to Allan, which is the monks in Filion who had a church on those grounds in the 1400s because it's been a working site for millennia. So Alexander Reed ran it until he got too old to do so, got passed on to a few other folks. The big thing that happens with the Macallan is in 1892 when Roderick Kemp takes it over. He'd sold Talisker over on the Isle of Skye, and he sort of instituted all the modern whiskey practices with coal and railway and scaling up the distillery. And this is also when they went big on sherry casking, because what Macallan has always been known for is being aged strictly in sherry casks. That's no longer true, but for literally 100 years, they were using sherry casks, which means big 500-liter casks, right? The punts from Ynez are bigger than the typical barrels that they would make and that they use bourbon. So, and Roderick passed away in 1909, but he had been wealthy enough that he set up a trust called the Kemp Trust. And that has a huge impact on what happens in Macallan, because 1909 is just before World War I. And you think about every distillery battles from World War I to the end of World War II, between the two wars and the Great Depression and Prohibition. But Macallan didn't have a whole lot of problem. They had enough money. So what they did was they would cut back production based on what their current consumption was all throughout and what the availability grain was. But they got big into long duration aging before it was cool. They literally talked about doing 12-year plus agings in the 1930s. So even then, you could buy a 12-year Macallan before almost anybody else had even put a age declaration on the bottle. So and that's before they ever used the term single malt, because single malt doesn't show up until the Fiddick folks think of it in the 1960s. Macallan doesn't jump on board until the 1980s. Meantime, they've built out their site bigger and bigger, and they have literally a couple of dozen stills. It's a big multi-million liter production, even in those early 60s and 70s, when they largely switch over to steam, although their stills, their spirit stills, which are unusually small, were still powered by coal up until past the 2000s. So from an ownership perspective, after the 1980s, 1986, Suntory bought 25% of them. That got everybody a little bit anxious. And so a few years later, Highland Distillers took the rest. And that ultimately in 1990 gets merged into the Edgerton Group, which is Famous Grouse and Highland Park and a few others. And the Edgerton Group is interesting. Like, I might just have to do their story on their own at some point. But until now, it's just been a sherry maker. It's not until 2004, which is when I started doing tours there, that they started doing what everybody else does, which is using American bourbon casks, because they're very inexpensive, and then they would finish in sherry casks. Now, they called that version Fine Oak, and you have to read the bottle very carefully to know that, because it'll be in very small print on the bottom. Fine Oak series, although since 2018, they now call it Triple Cask Matured. But this one says Sherry Oak Cask for the reason it's been only aged in sherry, and that is rare. It's not a common thing because the barrels are expensive. But the Edgerton Group is really smart, and they made tight relationships with the sherry producers. You understand that over time, sherry production has changed. The demand for barrels was so high. You know, when Kemp was making sherry caskings, it was because they were buying sherry in casks and just reusing them. But as the demand got higher and bottles got cheaper, the casks became rarer. And so wisely, the Edgerton Group made a deal with sherry producers, not only to secure their own barrels, but they would actually have the barrels made and then casked in sherry, and then they would use them to make their whiskey. They went even further than that. Today, they actually make American oak casks and ship them to Yemenez to do 3 years in sherry before being brought back to make into whiskey. Today, Macallan is in the top 3, sometimes top 2. It's Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Macallan. Their production facility is one of the biggest in the world, does 15 million liters a year. It is massive. 21 stainless swashbacks, 7 wooden swashbacks, all about 35,000 liters each, not particularly large, but many of them. They have 12 wash stills that are the normal sort of 12,000 liter size, and 24 spirit stills, which are the smallest in the industry at 3,900 liters. They are crazy small, and they are uniquely known for using these crazy small, to the point where in the 90s, there was a version of the 10-pound Scottish note printed with those stills on the back. It's a very prized note now. If you can find one, they're rare. They were distributed to the employees at the time, and I think one came up for auction for a couple of £100 for a 10-pound note. Macallan stuck with direct fire on their stills right up until 2010, but only for the spirit stills, not for the wash stills. Now, we all know why we don't do direct fire these days, because stuff explodes when you're making alcohol. It's dangerous. And so the normal is steam, but there's an argument that when you actually use heat on stills, you create other compounds. Now, this is typical with the wash stills, which have all of the dregs and so forth, the draft in them, and those get toasted because you have higher direct temperatures on that. That definitely conveys the temperature. But Macallan switched their wash stills to steam in the 1970s when everybody else did. They kept their spirit stills initially fired with coal, and then they moved to natural gas. And only when they were getting really scaling up in the 2004 to 2010 timeframe did they started gradually switching all of the stills over to steam, which speaks to this sort of classic thing that people talk about older whiskey's better. But then the argument is it's produced differently. Now, I also, because I repeatedly visited the Macallan distillery in the early aughts and into the 10s, saw them build out the new facility, which was this massive facility. They started in 2014 and finished in 2018. And they added huge amounts of barrel storage. Today, they store over 200,000 barrels on site. There's bourbon casks in there now, but for a long time, they're just the 500-liter sherry casks, which are much larger than the traditional ones. But now they're also making American oak casks, and they age them as well. What makes Macallan such a legend besides making a pretty good whiskey? They know how to market. And they got positioned in James Bond, specifically in the Daniel Craig Skyfall, where they used a Macallan Fine and Rare 1962 in it, which is actually a 15-year-old whiskey. It just happened to have been bottled in 1977 after being distilled in 62. These are extremely rare. I don't know if Skyfall drove up the price, but the last one it was seen in auction, and they got $125,000 for it. And it was a reference to the 50th anniversary of James Bond, because 1962 was the first James Bond movie, Dr. No. Speaking of auction, Macallan has routinely broken the record for most expensive whiskey ever sold at auction. In 2007, a bottle of the 1926 sold for $54,000. Then in 2010, and I talked about this one before, the Lalique Perdue, which was a custom crystal bottle with 64-year-old whiskey in it, sold for $460,000. In 2019, another 1926 sold at Sotheby's for 1.5 million pounds. That's 2 million US. And just a couple of years ago in 23, the same kind of bottle sold for 2.1 million pounds. That's almost 3 million US. But is it worth $400? And I was really debating this because it's kind of a one-note whiskey. I mean, it's a very good one-note whiskey, but I wonder if it's me, because it's just sherry cask. And virtually every whiskey to drink today has initially been aged in bourbon because the barrels are plentiful, and then finished in sherry because the barrels are not plentiful. And has that literally changed the way we like to taste whiskey? I'm not sure. But the sherry cask is kind of special. And like I said, Macallan makes both. You can go get their triple cask series, and they tend to be less expensive by quite a bit. I think the fine oak version of the 18 is like $300 instead of $400 because of the barrel cost differences. It's kind of a big deal. But the older versions of this, so this is the 23 release, which is, I think, current. A 2013 release of this goes for $800 if you can find one. Now, that seems unreasonable. Like, it's basically made the same way at that point in 2013, still aged in sherry casks. And it's not $400 for an 18 is pricey no matter what you talk about. Like Glendronach makes an 18, which is a straight sherry casking, for about $200 US. At 43%, it's nothing special. They probably chill filter because they say that they don't say that they don't. They do not use color, which is fine. You know, they don't need to. If you're going to be in sherry, you're going to get lots of color anyway. So why buy this? Well, you shouldn't. Most of the time.
I was wondering where that was going to go.
You should try. You should have a friend who has one and try it once, so now you know.
Right. Go over to Richard's. We're all invited.
Yep.
Yeah. Or as a gift, which is exactly how I got it.
Right.
You know what this is really for? You like somebody, you want to buy them special, and you don't know how much they actually like whiskey. Because you can't not like this if you don't know how much it costs.
Right.
But the other thing that's happened to me, because I've tried so many different whiskeys, is like for $400, there's a lot of other things I want to try.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to get this one.
Now you have you've linked to the 2023 release.
Yes, which is exactly what this is. This is the $400 one if you can find one. And I think of the 18s, it's one of the most readily available, where like that Glendronach 18, good luck finding one. It's half the price if you can find one. Most places don't stock 18-year-olds. And when they do, they mark them up, because if you're looking for that, it's because you're ready to spend money on a whiskey. Right. Like And 18 is kind of my limit for regular drinking whiskeys anyway. Like when you get much older than that, it gets much more complicated, right?
Yeah.
Like they drink the 12 and this is a 1-drink whiskey, like for crying out loud. That's a lot of money.
The 12 for crying out loud.
You're going to be really happy drinking the 12. By the way, the 12's not cheap, right? It's still $150.
Drink the 12. What could those 6 years make? What difference?
Well, the other thing is which 12. Like actually finding a 12 sherry is not that easy. It's typically the triple cask, which again, none of these are bad. There's no bad whiskey here, right? I'm just talking about value and proposition. For somebody who's very knowledgeable about whiskey, they're going to be kind of underwhelmed about the Macallan 18 because it is super old school. The Macallan 18 sherry is the way whiskey's been made for several hundred years, right? Or at least over 100. And so contemporary whiskeys are a little more complicated than that. And people's expectations have moved. This is us, not them. They are deliberately making a traditional whiskey because it is traditional. They make other whiskeys. If you want to drink Macallan, it's a little more contemporary. You can do it. Get their triple cask.
Yeah.
But this is because you wanted old school. So as a gift, makes total sense. Do you need to keep it on your shelf? Nah, because you're going to finish it. It's awful good.
Don't make cocktails with it, but
my God, no.
Yeah.
Not at that price.
And by the way, if somebody drinks your 18 and you weren't looking, you're gonna be annoyed.
Yeah.
No two ways about that.
Definitely.
And we are talking about Edrington, who owns it, who also makes Famous Grouse and Cutty Sark and a bunch of other really great blends at really reasonable prices, like $20, and have Macallan in them. You know, Macallan only got in the single malt game in 1980. What do you think they were doing for the previous 200 years? They were going in blends, and they still do to this day.
Right. Mr. Met, who lives in New York, says there's a place in his neighborhood that has it on the menu for $127 a glass.
Like for a shot, yeah. Jeez.
But you can go for the 25 for $920 a glass.
That's
Pappy Van Winkle prices.
Yeah,
that's a laptop.
That.
Gonna have one
no excuse.
Yeah, we have one drink
if you've got
or one laptop
to spend on a drink. Go buy the bottle.
Yeah,
because you can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Richard Campbell, he's at runasradio.com. That's where you'll find that show about SQL Server, but all of his great stuff. Also, .NET Rocks, the show he does with Carl Franklin, runasradio.com. 6 luxurious weeks in British Columbia.
Oh, I'm so looking for it. And the summertime, too. It's just looking, look out that window, friends. It's all green and lush out there.
Man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah. It's a good time to be home for a few weeks.
Beautiful.
I imagine somewhere in the 3-week mark, she's going to be looking at me like, don't you have somewhere to go?
Did you book something? Paul Thurrott's at Thurrott.com. That's where he goes every day to file fabulous reports. Become a premium member, and there's lots of extras. THURROTT.com. His books are at leanpub.com. Not, I'm sorry to say, the Delphi Super Bible, but something a little more recent, the Field Guide to Windows 11, and his history of Windows through its programming frameworks, Windows everywhere. Leanpub.com. It's a nice place. You set your own price. The three of us shall return next Wednesday. We do this show every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live.
That's next week's.
What is that?
Yeah, this is South African.
Oh, this will be fun. You haven't opened it yet.
Got a little leather on the lid, too. It's very cool. So I haven't finished my research on that one side.
Little leather on the lid is what he just said.
On the lid.
How many times have I heard that?
Just said that out loud like it made sense.
Like everything's fine. Everything's fine.
You can watch us live. You don't have to, but you can if you're in the club. Of course, behind the velvet rope access is at Club Twit's Discord page. But YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and Kick are also streaming us live every week. So watch us live if you want. If you do watch live, you can chat with us live. We love that. But after the fact, you can download a copy at our website, twit.tv/WW. When you get there, you'll see a link to the YouTube page. Great way to share clips with interested parties. A good way to spread the word about this show. Another way to spread the word, leave us a great review. 5 stars, if you please, at your favorite podcast client. While you're there, subscribe. That way you'll get it automatically. Every Wednesday, the minute it's available, the minute we've polished it up. We put a little leather on the top. That's
Polishing
when you
a
know.
turd. The Windows Weekly story.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Thank you all, you winners and dozers. And we will be right here next week. Hope you will too for Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.